Chapter 218. Xuanhuan's consciousness followed Liemo out of her body. The all-seeing mirror had already been opened by the first elder, and Xuanhuan was led into the trial. Xuanhuan followed the path she had taken the last time, all the way to the lake in the middle of the oasis. It's at the bottom of this lake. Xuanhuan pointed at the surface of the lake, and the two of them sent their consciousnesses into it. As their consciousnesses neared the bottom of the lake, outside the trial, the two eyes of the snake carving on Xuanhuan's right hand began to flicker with a mysterious red light. The first elder's gaze landed on the snake ring, and his expression darkened. He had a feeling that after 1,000 years of peace, the Xuanhuan continent would soon be plunged into chaos. The closer they got to the demonic dragon grotto, the more Xuanhuan felt something calling to her, something that caused her to speed up anxiously. On the contrary, however, the closer Liemo got to the grotto, the more he felt a repulsive force, as if telling him that he wasn't welcome. Xuanhuan didn't sense Liemo's discomfort as they neared the bottom of the lake. "Little fellow, you're finally back?" A low voice suddenly rang out from the bottom of the lake. Xuanhuan heard it, and so did Liemo. That voice was far more desolate than the one emitted by the crimson eyes. "But you've brought an alien with you," the voice continued, its tone dissatisfied. "Who are you?" Xuanhuan asked. "I'm the first elder of the demonic dragon clan," the voice replied. "Little fellow, we've waited 1,000 years for you. You're finally here." At the bottom of the lake, above the recess that Xuanhuan was about to enter, an illusion suddenly appeared. It was a sea of scorching flames, and numerous black dragons were writhing within the flames. Their low, mournful cries rang out from within the flames, so mournful that Xuanhuan couldn't help but join in the mournful cries of the dragons. In contrast to the illusion that Xuanhuan had seen, Liemo was facing several abnormally ferocious black dragons. The dragons bared their sharp fangs at him, howling angrily at him to scram. In an instant, Liemo felt the immense pressure of the black dragon. The murderous aura here is too strong, and I'm afraid it'll harm your consciousness. We can't stay here for long." Liemo turned to Xuanhuan anxiously. However, Xuanhuan didn't seem to hear Liemo's voice. She stared blankly at the illusion below. Seeing that Xuanhuan was acting strangely, Liemo was just about to take her away when a black dragon roared and pounced at him. Accompanying the dragon's claw was a pressure that Liemo had never felt before. Liemo's divine sense was instantly shaken and dissipated in the lake. As soon as Liemo opened his eyes, he spat out a mouthful of blood. "Sunimo, what happened?" the first elder asked anxiously. Based on Liemo's cultivation, even if he had been subjected to heavenly punishment, he wouldn't have spat out such a large mouthful of blood. What a powerful killing intent. Liemo struggled to regain his composure as he looked at the first elder. "There's a demonic dragon tomb beneath the lake." Liemo looked worriedly at Xuanhuan by his side. Her eyes were still tightly shut, and her face was expressionless. "The killing intent in that tomb is very repulsive to me, but it's very attractive to Yena." Liemo reached out to wake Xuanhuan up, but the first elder hurriedly stopped him. "Wait. Her divine sense is trapped, and I'm afraid it'll harm her if we force it back. Moreover, according to what you've said, Xuanhuan shouldn't be harmed. Let's see what they're up to first." Within the demonic dragon tomb, the demonic dragon's desolate voice continued. 1,000 years ago, the demonic dragon clan suffered a great calamity. Everyone in the clan died, leaving behind only a single bloodline. We've been lying dormant here for 1,000 years, waiting for this bloodline to arrive and revive the demonic dragon clan. "You mean to say that I'm a descendant of the demonic dragon clan?" Xuanhuan couldn't believe it. "You must be mistaken. I'm a member of the Yun family, and the blood of the Yun family flows through my veins. I can't possibly be related to the demonic dragon clan." "Child, you must believe me," the desolate voice continued. "The dragon ring recognizes its owner, and there's no mistaking it. You're a descendant of the demonic dragon clan. You're responsible for reviving the dragon clan. Without any proof, I can't believe your one-sided story." Xuanhuan really couldn't accept this new identity. "Since you say that the ring on my finger belongs to you, please take it back." The demonic dragon continued to roil in the sea of flames, but it didn't respond. Just as Xuanhuan was about to lose her patience, the demonic dragon finally spoke again. "I can temporarily take back the dragon ring, and I won't force you to accept your identity right now. But if you don't believe me, you can investigate the matter yourself. There will always be some clues that can prove your identity. When you've confirmed your identity, come back to me. Before confirming your identity, you must keep it a secret, lest you bring disaster upon yourself. And that kid beside you just now, stay away from him. I can sense the foreign bloodline in his veins, and those who aren't of our clan are bound to have a different heart. Remember, remember. Xuanhuan slowly opened her eyes, and Li Mo's concerned face appeared in front of her. Are you all right? Li Mo frowned, his worry clear in his eyes. I'm fine. Xuanhuan shook her head. Her gaze landed on her right hand, where the ring had disappeared without her realizing it. Just before you woke up, the ring suddenly disappeared, Li Mo began. What did you see in the demonic dragon's grotto? Xuanhuan looked at Li Mo and opened her mouth to tell him everything, but the demonic dragon's voice suddenly rang out by her ear. You mustn't reveal your identity or you'll be killed. Those who aren't of our clan are bound to have a different heart. Remember this, remember this. After thinking for a while, she changed her words and said, the One Ring was taken away. They asked me where I got the One Ring. I told them the truth that I got it from the royal territory and they let me go. Is that all? The great elder asked in confusion. He clearly didn't believe it. Yes, that's all. Xuanhuan leaned weakly against Li Mo's shoulder. Li Mo caressed Xuanhuan's cheek, his heart aching for her. It's fine now. All that matters is that the ring is gone. Master, if that's the case, I'll take Xian'er to rest. Before the first elder could respond, Li Mo carried Xuanhuan and left. As the first elder watched Li Mo's back, an almost imperceptible glint flashed across his eyes. Li Mo gently placed Xuanhuan on a wooden bed behind the curtains and covered her with a blanket. Li Mo, don't go. Xuanhuan grabbed his hand. Sleep, I won't leave. Li Mo patted Xuanhuan's shoulder and lay down by her side. Only then did Xuanhuan close her eyes, and she quickly fell asleep. Xian'er. A voice called out to her in her dreams. That voice was very familiar. It was her mother. Mother, where are you? Xuanhuan chased after the voice until she reached a garden filled with peach blossoms. Come here, come to mother. Lin Yueme's voice grew closer and closer, and Xuanhuan ran in the direction of the voice. Halfway through she tripped and climbed back up. Finally, under a large peach tree, Xuanhuan saw Lin Yueme. Mother, Xian'er found you. Xian'er found you. Xuanhuan ran toward Lin Yueme happily. But after taking 2 steps, Xuanhuan suddenly realized that there was a man sitting by Lin Yueme's side. That man had his back to Xuanhuan and his back was straight. He was dressed in a silver-white robe and his ink-black hair flowed down his back. Although she couldn't see his face, Xuanhuan could sense that he was an extraordinary man. Mother, who is he? Xuanhuan turned to her mother. Come. Lin Yueme beckoned to Xuanhuan. Greet your father. What? Xuanhuan was stunned. He's my father? Although she could only see his back, Xuanhuan was certain that this man wasn't her father. Mother, you must be mistaken. My father is the head of the Yun family, Yunlan. Silly child, you're my own flesh and blood, so how could I be mistaken? Come, let me see you. Lin Yueme continued to smile and beckoned to Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan walked over, confused. Just then the man slowly turned around. What appeared in front of Xuanhuan was a face so blurry that she couldn't make out its features. As Xuanhuan walked closer, she tried to get a better look at the man's face. Suddenly the man's face began to change. Black dragon scales protruded and covered the man's entire face, and 2 black dragon horns sprouted from both sides of his head. Just as Xuanhuan was reeling in shock, the man suddenly opened his eyes, and 2 beams of crimson light shot out of them. At the same time, a voice came out of his mouth. I'm your father. Xuanhuan screamed, waking up from her dream. Her forehead was damp with sweat. She looked to her side, but Li Mo was no longer there, and she could hear voices coming from outside. Xuanhuan calmed her wildly beating heart and got off the bed. Your Highness, Madam wants me to ask you when we're going to act. It was an unfamiliar man's voice and his tone was respectful. Go back and report to Madam that there's been a change in the situation. I'm afraid we'll have to delay it, Li Mo replied. Madam? Who was Madam? Was Li Mo a married man? Xuanhuan didn't walk out of the room. Instead, she listened quietly. Your Highness, Madam wants me to pass on a message. What did my mother say? She said that Your Highness mustn't forget the death of the Beast King, as well as the blood of the 100,000 Beastkin soldiers who sacrificed their lives. In the face of the nation's vengeance, all personal relationships are insignificant. After a short silence, Li Mo continued coolly, Go back and tell my mother that I've never forgotten what I shouldn't have. Everything I'm doing now is to achieve my final goal. Yes, Your Highness, I'll take my leave. Only when the voice disappeared did Yun Ruoyan slowly lean against the wooden screen, the cold sweat that had already dried up on her forehead once more. A gust of cold wind blew, and Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but shiver. She could faintly hear footsteps outside her room, and she hurriedly lay back down on the bed, pretending to be half asleep. Chapter 219. Seeing that Yun Ruoyan still hadn't woken up, Liemo sat down by her side and tucked her exposed arm under the blanket. Yun Ruoyan slowly opened her eyes and looked at Liemo with a confused gaze. "You're awake. Are you hungry? Why are you looking at me like that?" Yun Ruoyan rubbed her eyes and her vision cleared up. Propping herself up, she sat up. "I had a dream, and when I woke up I thought I heard you talking to someone and calling for your mother." Yun Ruoyan frowned and put on a confused expression. "Did I sleep too much? Is it morning already?" "You must be in a daze," Liemo smiled. "Do you know how long you've slept?" "How long?" Yun Ruoyan frowned at Liemo. "You slept for 5 days and 5 nights, Liemo replied. "The first elder said that you used up too much of your energy, and that's why you fell into a deep slumber. How are you feeling now?" "I slept for 5 days and 5 nights. Yun Ruoyan felt as though she had just had a dream, and that she hadn't slept that long. "I have to go back and tell grandfather and the others. They must be very worried about me." Yun Ruoyan got off the bed. Seeing her anxiety, Liemo pulled her back. "I've already sent word to the Lins and the Yuns, telling them that I've brought you back to Kongming Academy. You should rest here for a few more days. Although you're my student, you'll still have to report to the academy." Yun Ruoyan sat back down on the bed. Liemo went outside and brought in a bowl of porridge. "An outer disciple just delivered this lotus porridge. Have some." Liemo blew on the porridge before feeding it to Yun Ruoyan, who obediently drank a few mouthfuls. "I had a very strange dream." "What dream?" Liemo brought the porridge to Yun Ruoyan's lips once more, but she shook her head. "I dreamed of my mother and she brought me to see a very strange person." "Strange?" "Yes, a person with no facial features." Yun Ruoyan's frown deepened, and her expression became pained. "It's just a dream. Don't worry too much about it." Liemo smoothed Yun Ruoyan's brows. "Liemo, you told me that your mother was kidnapped by your enemies when you were very young. Do you still remember what she looked like?" "Yes, it was beautiful." Liemo's face lit up with yearning. "More beautiful than the mountains, the sun, and the moon." Yun Ruoyan lowered her head, and her voice grew softer. "You must look like your mother. Do you miss her?" "Yes. No matter what price I have to pay, I'll definitely save my mother from her enemies." Yun Ruoyan rested her chin on her knees and hugged her thighs. Liemo was familiar with this posture of hers. When she felt insecure, she would adopt this posture to protect herself. "Yenner." Liemo reached out and pulled her into his embrace. "That's just a dream. Don't think about it anymore." Liemo thought that Yun Ruoyan was in a bad mood because of her dream, but he didn't know what she was really thinking. "I'm tired and I'd like to lie down a little longer." Yun Ruoyan lay down. "I'll be cultivating outside. Call me if you need anything." Liemo patted Yun Ruoyan's shoulder, then stood up and walked out of the room. Yun Ruoyan rested in the tower for another day. The first elder came to see her and said that she was fine. Yun Ruoyan requested to return to her own room. Starting tomorrow, the new students would be arriving one by one, and it wouldn't be convenient for her to stay here. Liemo sent her back to her cottage by the cliff. "Make sure to rest well before the start of the new semester. You can stop cultivating for a while," Liemo instructed. "You're already a peak 7th rank blade master, and you're one of the stronger ones among the new students. Once you've recovered, I'll teach you some new techniques." "All right." Yun Ruoyan nodded. "I'll have to leave for a few days though." "All right," Yun Ruoyan replied. Liemo was worried that Yun Ruoyan was so energetic. "Yin, why don't I keep you company for another 2 days?" "There's no need." Afraid that Liemo would see through her thoughts, Yun Ruoyan hurriedly added, "Come back soon." After Liemo left, Yun Ruoyan leaned against the windowsill and stared at the sea of clouds, her mind full of thoughts. Liemo had certainly lied to her, and she was naturally a little hurt. However, she had also lied to him. Yun Ruoyan didn't think that she had any right to blame Liemo for this. However, she remembered that she had once discussed secrets with Liemo, and both of them had agreed that there were some secrets that shouldn't be revealed to outsiders. But when she thought back to the night they'd shared their sincerity with each other, Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but feel a little sad. As long as the two of us love each other, it shouldn't matter even if we have some secrets. After all, lying is sometimes a form of protection, Yun Ruoyan muttered to herself. Liemo flew across the Kongming Mountains and toward the Ueli Mountains. By evening he landed in a secluded valley in the Ueli Mountains. In the middle of the valley stood a tall building. If it were in perfect condition, it would have been majestic and exquisite, but the building in front of Liemo was in a dilapidated state. As Liemo walked into the building, he noticed that most of the decorations in the building's main hall had been destroyed. Even so, the broken stone pillars and the jade-like floor were evidence of its former glory. "Your Highness." At this moment, a black-robed man walked out from the corner of the hall. His face was hidden in a hood. "Xuanhuan," Liemo greeted. "The Empress knew that you were coming, so she had me wait for you here." Xuanhuan removed his hood, revealing the face of a middle-aged man. Xuanhuan led Liemo into a dark alley around the corner. It was dark, damp, and devoid of any light, but since both of them could see in the dark, it wasn't a problem. "How are the arrangements for the beastkin?" Liemo asked. "Very well, Your Highness. The herbs that Li Luo sent over have been a great help," Xuanhuan replied. "According to the Empress's orders, Su Bei, Su Dong, and I have carved out a small valley nearby and placed all the beastkin we've saved over the years there." The two of them soon arrived at the end of the secret passage, which was blocked by a stone door. Xuanhuan knocked 3 times on the stone door and said, "Your Highness, His Highness is here." As soon as Xuanhuan's voice fell, the stone door slowly opened. Xuanhuan waited respectfully by its side as Liemo strode in. This was a very spacious chamber. The chamber was filled with all kinds of glowing demonic beast cores as well as all kinds of spirit grasses. Any cultivator who walked into this place would be blinded. Any one of those demonic beasts' inner cores was top grade, and any one of those spirit herbs was priceless. Liemo walked respectfully among the treasures. Not far in front of him stood a snow-white woman. "Your son pays his respects, mother?" Liemo walked up to the woman and bowed respectfully. There's no need to be so polite." The woman's voice was like the collision of ice and stone. Although it was pleasant to the ear, it sent a chill down one's spine. Liemo straightened his back and looked at his mother, the Empress of the Beastkin Kingdom. It was a breathtakingly beautiful face, but it was also a lifeless face. More accurately, the Empress's entire body was lifeless. The only thing standing there was a white jade statue. "Did you come to see me this time because you have a new plan?" The Empress' voice came from the jade statue. "I wanted to use this opportunity to lure those old fellows out," Liemo replied. "But although I've learned the third elder's spirit-locking palm, I'm not confident in defeating them, so I'm worried that I'll alert them and ruin the plan." Liemo extended a hand, his fingers forming a claw, and a white vortex formed in his palm. This was the spirit-locking vortex of the spirit-locking palm. Once the vortex was injected into an opponent's body, it would travel along the person's meridians and enter the person's sea of qi, causing damage to it. In the worst-case scenario, the person's sea of qi would collapse, and they would lose their cultivation. In the best-case scenario, they wouldn't be able to use spiritual energy for a certain period of time. The spirit-locking palm is indeed powerful, but your cultivation isn't yet at the level of a sword saint, so you won't be able to unleash its full potential. The elders of the Silver Dragon clan are all at the level of a third-rank sword saint. You're definitely no match for them. The Empress's voice grew stern, clearly dissatisfied with Liemo's impulsive behavior. "I'm being too impatient," Liemo replied. "It's just that your consciousness is growing weaker and weaker, and I want to reclaim your body as soon as possible." The jade statue sighed, and the Empress's thoughts drifted back to more than 10 years ago. Those memories seemed as distant as a lifetime ago, but also as if they'd happened only yesterday. The Empress's name was Xue Tong, a holy maiden of the Silver Dragon clan. Many years ago she'd stumbled upon the Xuanhuan continent and met the Beast King, Sun Tianli. The two of them fell in love, but the Silver Dragon clan valued the purity of their bloodline and forbade marriage between members of their clan and outsiders. As a result, the two of them were hunted down and hunted down. Even after the two of them went into seclusion in the mountains, they still weren't able to escape the pursuit of the Silver Dragon clan's elders. Sun Tianli battled the fourth elder and in the end perished along with the third elder. After Xue Tong was injured, her primordial spirit left her body and hid in the jade statue that Sun Tianli had carved for her, but her body was taken away by the elders. "I've already been trapped here for more than 10 years. With the nourishment of these spiritual herbs, I should be able to hold on for another 10 years, the Empress said. "You have to be careful at every step. Don't be rash and put yourself in danger." "I understand." Liemo hesitated for a moment, then said, "I discovered a demonic dragon tomb in the trial grounds of Kongming Academy." "A demonic dragon tomb?" Empress Xue Tong was shocked. The demonic dragons were exterminated by the combined efforts of the humans and the silver dragons 1,000 years ago. I've read in ancient records that their corpses were all incinerated, but I didn't expect to find a tomb on the Xuanhuan continent. Not only is there a tomb but their dragon souls also exist, Liemo added. Their dragon souls exist. Empress Xuetong was even more shocked. Is there anyone else who knows about this? Chapter 220. Other than me, only Master and Miss Yun know about it, Liemo replied. Miss Yun? How did she know about this? Empress Xuetong asked. She discovered it by accident while hunting a magical beast during the trial, Liemo replied. Qiuqiu told her about it. Liemo had reported to Empress Xuetong that Qiuqiu had become Yun Ruoyan's contracted beast. Both of you must keep this secret, Empress Xuetong said. Xuetong had once been the holy maiden of the Silver Dragon clan, but the murder of her husband had left her with nothing but hatred for the Silver Dragons. For now, it seemed almost impossible for her to deal with the Silver Dragons. She had thought that she would have to bide her time and bide her time. Even then, she wasn't confident that she could exact her revenge. However, Liemo's news gave her hope. Even if a dragon were to perish, as long as the dragon's soul remained, there would be hope of resurrection. The demonic dragons and silver dragons were sworn enemies. If the demonic dragons could really be resurrected, then the silver dragons would be the first to be dealt with. If they could form an alliance with the demonic dragons, they would surely be able to exact their revenge. Liemo finally understood his mother's intentions. Yin naturally won't tell anyone about this, but Master has always believed that the demonic dragons are evil. He's already prepared to convene a meeting of the elders to discuss how to deal with the demonic dragon tomb. Absolutely not, Empress Xuetong warned. If word of this gets out and alarms the silver dragon spies on the Xuanhuan continent, this demonic dragon tomb will cease to exist. You have to find a way to keep this a secret. Discovering the demonic dragon tomb was a big deal, and the first elder needed a good reason to keep it a secret. Empress Xuetong's consciousness had remained on the Xuanhuan continent the entire time, so the first elder didn't know about it. It wouldn't be easy for the first elder to keep this a secret while concealing her true intentions. Liemo's face betrayed his awkwardness, but after a long while he nodded in agreement. No. Empress Xuetong was still worried. This matter is too important and we can't afford to let anything slip. It looks like I'll have to speak to your master personally. Liemo looked at his mother in surprise. Her flawless face was devoid of any emotion, and even her voice was devoid of any emotion. Liemo couldn't help but think back to when he was 10, when he had been attacked by a ferocious beast while out hunting. At the critical moment, a black-robed man had appeared to save him. The black-robed man who saved him was the great general of the beast country, Xuanhuan. When Liemo woke up, he found himself lying in an underground chamber, and his mother was standing right in front of him. Mother, do you really wish to see Master? Liemo asked. All these years, Empress Xuetong had insisted that Liemo hide the fact that she had left a trace of her spiritual sense in the abyssal lake from the first elder. Now that she suddenly requested to see the first elder, Liemo couldn't help but be surprised. I hid it from your master because I suspect that he was the one who betrayed your father to the silver dragon elder. Empress Xuetong said, but in the past 10 years, I haven't found any trace of his betrayal. In addition, he has done his best for you all these years, so I have no choice but to trust him. There was a faint sigh in Empress Xuetong's cold voice. After so many years, it's time for me to meet him. All right, I'll inform Master, Liemo said. No need, I'll have a shadow guard inform him, Empress Xuetong said. The demonic dragon tomb has reappeared, and the demonic dragon bloodline has appeared. Only someone with the bloodline can resurrect them. What you need to do now is to find out who this person is, then help her resurrect the entire demonic dragon clan. Just as Liemo was about to leave, Empress Xuetong called him back. Is that Miss Yun, the girl with the human furnace you mentioned before? Yes, Liemo replied respectfully. You like her very much? Why do you say so, mother? No one knows me better than I do. The Empress paused for a moment before continuing. Apart from the time you mentioned the human furnace to me, you've never mentioned her in front of me again. But as far as I know, she often appears by your side, and you're protecting her by not mentioning her. The Empress fell silent, waiting for Liemo's reply. Mother, you're overthinking things. Liemo's expression didn't change in the slightest. Her constitution is very important to my cultivation. Whether I'll be able to break through from peak 9th rank to peak sword saint will depend on her. That's all? That's all. Sunemo. Empress Xuetong suddenly called out Li Mo's name, her tone cold and stern. Yes, mother. Li Mo bowed, his expression solemn. Do you still remember what mother said to you? Don't let your emotions get the better of you, and don't let your emotions get the better of you before you've taken your revenge. Li Mo paused for a moment before replying honestly, Mother, I've always remembered your teachings. Before I've taken my revenge, I'll put my emotions at the back of my mind. His indifferent words were filled with certainty. Queen Xuetong then softened her tone and sighed slightly, Love is the most exhausting thing. I don't want you to spend your energy on this before you take your revenge. Alright, you can go now. Li Mo bowed respectfully, then turned to leave. At the stone door, Li Mo couldn't help but look at the Empress's sculpture once more. The gentle and beautiful woman in his memory now only had a wisp of divine sense trapped in the ice-cold statue. Empress Xuetong's temperament has changed over the years. She's become stricter toward your highness, but her love for you has never changed. Sunan's voice rang out by Li Mo's ear. Please don't take it to heart, your highness. Empress Xuetong wasn't just strict toward Li Mo. Although she was trapped in the sculpture, she kept all of her subordinates in check. Zhuo Yifeng has already entered the Southern College, and Zhuo Lin is currently studying medicine with Lin Zainan. Both siblings are doing well. Li Mo calmly changed the subject. Although Sunan hadn't asked a single question about the Zhuo siblings, Li Mo knew that he cared deeply for them. An imperceptible smile appeared on Sunan's resolute face, but it disappeared in a flash. He said in a low voice, Thank you, your highness. Li Mo nodded, turned and left on his sword. The next morning Yun Ruoyan was cultivating in her room when she heard footsteps approaching. From the sound of it, there was more than one person approaching. Yun Ruoyan opened her eyes and got off her bed to open the door. As soon as she did, Lin Qingchen and Lin Qingxue appeared in front of her. When did you get here? Yun Ruoyan looked at her two sisters in surprise. We just arrived. Sister Ruoyan, are you all right? Lin Qingxue held onto Yun Ruoyan's hand and examined her from head to toe. As she did so, she murmured, I heard that Whitey injured you. Are you hurt anywhere? Lin Qingxue hadn't been present when Yun Ruoyan had been invaded by demonic energy. She had only heard from Zhuo Lin afterward that Yun Ruoyan had been injured by Whitey because Zhuo Lin's cultivation was too low. No, I'm fine. Yun Ruoyan smiled. Lin Qingchen walked over and tugged on Yun Ruoyan's other sleeve. Sister Ruoyan, what happened that day? When Lin Qingchen saw Yun Ruoyan's bloodshot eyes, she couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine. Yun Ruoyan didn't intend to tell them about what had happened in the demonic dragon tomb. She sighed. I overestimated myself and tried to use the serpent ring to control Whitey, but the demonic energy invaded my body instead. Fortunately, I'm fine now. Li Mo has already helped me purge the demonic energy from my body. Yun Ruoyan pulled her sisters into the room, but Zhuo Yifeng stood by the door, unmoving. Zhuo Yifeng, come in too. Yun Ruoyan called out to him. Ever since Zhuo Yifeng had worked as a servant and guard, he had developed a habit of not entering his master's quarters. When he heard Yun Ruoyan call out to him, he couldn't help but pause. Brother Zhuo, come in. Lin Qingxue let go of Yun Ruoyan's arm and turned to pull Zhuo Yifeng into the room. Brother Zhuo, look at the scenery here, especially the sea of clouds outside the window. Lin Qingxue pulled Zhuo Yifeng around the small room, looking at all the windows, even the one in the ear chamber. How's Whitey? Yun Ruoyan asked Lin Qingchen. Strangely enough, after the slaughtering king took you away, Whitey returned to normal, Lin Qingchen replied. Yun Ruoyan was even more certain that Whitey had been affected by the demonic ring. Lin Qingchen's gaze landed on Yun Ruoyan's hand. Sister Ruoyan, where's the serpent ring? It was destroyed when Li Mo was trying to exorcise the demonic energy from me, Yun Ruoyan replied perfunctorily. I have something to say to the two of you, Zhuo Yifeng suddenly said as he walked out of the ear chamber. Brother Zhuo, what do you have to say? Lin Qingxue looked at Zhuo Yifeng curiously. Yun Ruoyan and Lin Qingxue also looked at Zhuo Yifeng. Zhuo Yifeng's gaze swept across Lin Qingxue and Lin Qingxue before landing on Yun Ruoyan. I've decided to leave the Southern College and switch to the Central College. What? Both Lin Qingxue and Lin Qingchen exclaimed at the same time. Brother Zhuo, the Central College is publicly known as a useless college. Why would you want to go there? Lin Qingxue hurriedly asked. That's right, Brother Zhuo. We're here to learn our skills, so don't be rash. Yun Ruoyan wasn't as surprised as the Lin sisters. Zhuo Yifeng had a grudge against Li Mo, and given his personality, it was only natural that he would change colleges after learning that Li Mo was an instructor of the Southern College. Yun Ruoyan thought for a moment. Liemo isn't the only instructor in the Southern College. Even if you want to seek revenge on him, you'll have to learn your skills first. Moreover, given Liemo's personality, he won't make things difficult for you. I'm not worried that he'll make things difficult for me, Zhuo Yifeng replied. He's such a lofty figure that he wouldn't care about a mere student like me. It's just that Liemo and I are enemies and I don't want to be known as a murderous teacher. I've already made up my mind, so don't try to persuade me otherwise. In that case, I'll change colleges with you, Lin Qingxue said anxiously. What are you saying? Lin Qingxue tugged at her sister's sleeve. Lin Qingxue glanced at Lin Qingchen and Yun Ruoyan, but she couldn't bear to part with her sisters. Chapter 221. Qingxue, don't be stubborn. Zhuo Yifeng turned to Lin Qingxue. I've made up my mind. I'm going to find the first and sixth elders now. Zhuo Yifeng walked out of the room. Brother Zhuo. Lin Qingxue hurriedly followed him. Qingxue. Lin Qingchen was afraid that Lin Qingxue would really follow Zhuo Yifeng to another academy, but Yun Ruoyan stopped her. Let her go or she won't give up. Yun Ruoyan looked at Lin Qingchen's anxious expression. Don't worry, Zhuo Yifeng won't let Qingxue follow him to another academy. Yun Ruoyan watched the two of them disappear into the alley and sighed. Once Zhuo Yifeng had made a decision, no one would be able to change his mind. That day, when she had chosen to enter the Southern College, everyone's eyes had been on her, and she had been too preoccupied to care about anything else. For a moment, she had forgotten about the grudge between Zhuo Yifeng and Liemo. When she thought about it later, she had even been gratified that Zhuo Yifeng had chosen the Southern College. She hadn't expected that Zhuo Yifeng would change his mind after a single holiday. Perhaps something else had happened to him? On the small path in the courtyard, Lin Qingxue jogged to catch up with Zhuo Yifeng. Brother Zhuo, can you not change academies? Isn't it better if we're all together? Lin Qingxue asked as she followed Zhuo Yifeng. My family's extermination is irreconcilable, Zhuo Yifeng replied. I thought that I could accept Liemo as my instructor, but I overestimated my tolerance. But Brother Zhuo, Sister Ruoyan said that the Slaughtering King isn't the only instructor. You can learn from another instructor and you don't have to change academies, do you? Lin Qingxue grabbed Zhuo Yifeng's sleeve, refusing to let him go. Zhuo Yifeng stopped and looked at Lin Qingxue helplessly. The Central College is the most remote part of Kongming Academy, and it's so far from the Southern College, Lin Qingxue protested. It won't be so easy for me to see you in the future, and you still haven't taught me how to shoot an arrow. I won't let you go. Qingxue let go. Zhuo Yifeng was helpless at Lin Qingxue's insistence. I didn't have to tell you about my decision, but since we're friends, I felt that I should. Qingxue, if you still think of me as a friend, please respect my decision. Who wants to be your friend? In her panic, Lin Qingxue lost her temper. Brother Zhuo, haven't you noticed after all this time that I like you? I want to be with you all the time. Lin Qingxue's roar caused Zhuo Yifeng's eyes to widen. His already pitch-black eyes shone so brightly that no one dared to look him in the eye. Although Lin Qingxue's personality was cheerful, she still had the shyness of a little girl. Her round face immediately reddened as soon as she revealed the little secret she'd hidden in her heart. Although Zhuo Yifeng was surprised by Lin Qingxue's confession, he wasn't shocked. He wasn't an idiot, and everyone could tell that Lin Qingxue liked him. Even Lin Zainan had spoken to him about it. Lin Zainan had told Zhuo Yifeng that as long as he treated Lin Qingxue well, the Lin family wouldn't care about his family background. However, Zhuo Yifeng had politely refused. Lin Zainan had told Zhuo Yifeng that Lin Qingxue was an honest child, and that if she liked someone she'd make up her mind. If that person didn't like her, then he shouldn't give her any hope. However, Zhuo Yifeng wasn't good at refusing. From then on, Zhuo Yifeng had distanced himself from Lin Qingxue, but Lin Qingxue didn't seem to notice his distancing at all. She was as passionate as ever, and this troubled Zhuo Yifeng for a long time. Zhuo Yifeng felt that he had to make things clear with Lin Qingxue today. Qingxue, I'm just a beastkin orphan. It's my honor to be friends with you, but I can't accept your love. Zhuo Yifeng looked at Lin Qingxue and said, I'm just a beastkin orphan. You're you and I like you. I don't care if you're beastkin or anything else, you can't care about that when you like someone. Lin Qingxue hurriedly said. Qingxue, don't be silly. Zhuo Yifeng smiled bitterly. Not only am I a beastkin, but I also have a blood feud with someone like me. I don't deserve to be loved. My heart is dead and I won't fall in love with anyone. I'll never live up to your love, so let go. Brother Zhuo, but I like you. Lin Qingxue's eyes were brimming with tears. You're a good girl. Zhuo Yifeng pried Lin Qingxue's fingers open one by one. You'll meet a man who's worthy of your love, but that man won't be me. He let go of Lin Qingshua's hand and walked away even faster. Brother Zhua. Lin Qingxue cried at his back. Brother Zhua, you're the only one I like. What does it matter to me if anyone else is good? Qingxue, what's wrong? Zhao Su, who had been taking a walk outside, heard Lin Qingshue's cries and hurried over to help her up when she saw her sitting on the ground. Zhao Su was accompanied by 2 other people. Zhao Su's older brother Zhao Gang and Zhao Su's good friend, the exotic young miss of the Li family, Li Furong. Sister, where did this little tabby cat come from? Why is she crying so early in the morning? Zhao Gang glanced at Lin Qingxue from the corner of his eye. None of your business. Lin Qingxue retorted as Zhao Su pulled her up, wiping away her tears. Wow, this little tabby cat is pretty fierce, Zhao Gang continued to mock. Brother Zhao, didn't you say you wanted us to show you around? Let's go. Li Furong tugged at Zhao Su, but her eyes were fixed on Lin Qingxue with undisguised disdain. What's there to see about this crybaby? Lin Qingxue was in a terrible mood, and Li Furong's disdainful glare only served to fuel her anger. What do you mean? Do you want to fight? Lin Qingxue rolled up her sleeves and took a step forward. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Li Furong didn't want to back down in the face of Lin Qingxue's provocation, so she stepped forward as well. Hey, don't fight, you two. Zhao Su wanted to step forward to mediate, but Zhao Gang held her back. It's just 2 kittens grinding their claws together, it's not a big deal. Let's just watch the show. Zhao Gang wasn't the only one who wanted to watch the show. As soon as Li Furong and Lin Qingxue got into position, 7 or 8 other students rushed over. Although it was still early in the morning, there were already quite a few male students in the female students' courtyard. Men were usually very curious about the female students' residences, and the female students' courtyards would only be closed to men at night. During the day they weren't forbidden from visiting. As such, many young men had come early in the morning to check on their friends and family. Haven't these 2 fought enough in the training grounds? Why are they fighting again so early in the morning? More or less not enough. Who do you think is stronger between the 2? I think they're about the same level of strength. Neither of them are experts, so there's really nothing to see, someone commented in disappointment. Just then Miss Li drew her sword and thrust it at Lin Qingxue. Lin Qingxue spun around and dodged the attack. Then she pulled out the twin blades she carried with her and attacked Miss Li repeatedly. Miss Li hastily responded, but her defense was watertight. Both of them were 5th-rank blade masters, and they couldn't even release their spiritual energy. As a result, they were both fighting with brute force. Many of the spectators were experts, and most of them treated this kind of competition as nothing more than an ordinary spectacle. Although the 2 of them were about the same level of cultivation, Lin Qingxue was still slightly superior in terms of technique. As time went on, Miss Li began to show signs of losing. I didn't expect that little kitten to be so good at swordsmanship, Zhao Gang said to Zhao Su. Brother, don't let them fight anymore. What if they get hurt? School starts tomorrow, Zhao Su said anxiously. Don't worry. Zhao Gang, on the other hand, seemed eager to see the world in chaos. Since we're so bored, let's let them fight to relieve our boredom. As soon as Zhao Gang finished speaking, he saw Li Furong make a small movement as she parried. Zhao Gang narrowed his eyes. Before he could decide whether or not to make a move, a figure dashed out from the crowd. At the same time, a cold glint brushed past Li Furong's finger, hitting the fake mountain opposite her. It was a dagger that glinted with a cold light. Oh, my hand! Li Furong cried out as she looked at her finger. The tip of her middle finger was cut by the dagger, and blood kept flowing down. Yunruoyan, how dare you ambush me? Li Furong pinched her wound as she glared at Yunruoyan. Are you trying to bully me with numbers? The crowd's gazes turned from Lin Qingxue and Li Furong to Yunruoyan, who had suddenly appeared. Lin Qingchen was by Yunruoyan's side, and it looked like she really did have the advantage of numbers. Isn't that the Yunruoyan who was accepted as a disciple by the elder's first disciple? That's her. She's at least a 7th-rank blade master, and the treasure from the imperial territory is in her hands. She's Lin Qingshue's sister, and it looks like she's going to stand up for Lin Qingxue. Li Furong wasn't Lin Qingshue's match in the first place. Isn't this an unnecessary move? The crowd began to discuss Yunruoyan's sudden attack. Don't think that I'll be afraid of you. At most, I'll go to the first elder for justice. Li Furong straightened her back when she saw that the crowd was on her side. At Kongming Academy, if the disparity in strength was too great, it was forbidden to bully the other party in broad daylight. However, rules were made by humans and naturally they could be broken by humans. If the weaker party offended the stronger party, they could be cornered in a secluded area. This wasn't anything new at Kongming Academy. However, there weren't many people who dared to make a move like Yun Ruoyan did. Chapter 222. Even Lin Qingxue looked at Yun Ruoyan in confusion. She was clearly about to defeat Li Furong, and Yun Ruoyan didn't even need to do anything. Yun Ruoyan ignored the crowd's gazes and chatter. Instead, she walked straight up to the fake mountain and gently pulled out the dagger. Yun Ruoyan had used just enough force that only the tip of the dagger had pierced into the fake mountain. When Yun Ruoyan pulled out the dagger, those with sharp eyes could clearly see a small black spider impaled on the tip of the dagger. That's a black fog spider. It's highly venomous. Someone immediately called out. Black fog spiders are unique to the Mo kingdom, and they're extremely poisonous, someone else added. Ah, you're trying to harm me with a venomous spider? How despicable. Lin Qingxue immediately broke out in a cold sweat. Although she didn't know what a black fog spider was, being bitten by a venomous spider was bound to have serious consequences. Li Furong had been on the verge of losing to Lin Qingxue, but because she was too competitive and didn't want to lose face, she had brought out the black fog spider. Not only had she failed to harm Lin Qingxue, but she had also been caught red-handed by Yun Ruoyan. Miss Li, is it really necessary to use such a vicious method on my sister over a small conflict? Yun Ruoyan asked coldly as she looked at the black spider impaled on the tip of the dagger. I don't know how it got out either, Li Furong argued. Perhaps it saw that I was in danger and wanted to protect its mistress. Li Furong's words caused the crowd to roar with laughter. Umph. Lin Qingchen pulled Lin Qingxue to her side. In that case, I'll also release venomous beasts on my body to bite you in the future, then say that it was trying to protect its mistress and that it wanted to bite you, and that it had nothing to do with me. Lin Qingchen's words caused the crowd to roar with laughter once more. You girls sure are frighteningly unreasonable when it comes to fighting, one of the male students laughed. Miss Li, in the future, please take care of your belongings. Otherwise it won't be as simple as a broken finger. Yun Ruoyan tossed the spider on the dagger to the ground and crushed it with her foot. Li Furong glared hatefully at Yun Ruoyan, then at Zhao Su and Zhao Gang. Both of their gazes landed on Yun Ruoyan, but neither of them seemed inclined to speak up for her. Li Furong had no choice but to squeeze out of the crowd and leave on her own amidst the laughter of the crowd. As Li Furong left pathetically, the onlookers also dispersed amidst laughter. Just as Yun Ruoyan was about to leave with her two sisters, Zhao Su's voice came from behind. Miss Yun, wait a minute. Yun Ruoyan stopped and turned to look at the Zhao siblings behind her. Zhao Gang had suffered at Yun Ruoyan's hands before, so his gaze toward Yun Ruoyan wasn't friendly. His arms were crossed as he stood by his sister's side, looking down at Yun Ruoyan from above. Yun Ruoyan only glanced at Zhao Gang coolly. She chose to ignore anyone who ignored her. Miss Zhao, what can I do for you? Yun Ruoyan asked. In her mind, Zhao Su wasn't a bad person, but one couldn't judge a person's true nature. Yun Ruoyan was used to being cautious around anyone she hadn't interacted with. May I ask if you were the last person to see Zhao Ming? Zhao Su asked. Yun Ruoyan frowned. She hadn't expected that the accusation that Rong Yueshan had forcefully pinned on her would still be brought up. I'll say it one last time, I didn't kill Zhao Ming. Whether you believe me or not, this is my final explanation. Miss Yun, you've misunderstood. Seeing Yun Ruoyan's displeasure, Zhao Su hurriedly continued. Although Zhao Ming and I are both from the Qin kingdom, we're not from the same family. No matter how he died, we're in no position to avenge him. Although Zhao Su had once had a good impression of Zhao Ming, it hadn't developed. Instead, it had been strangled in the cradle with Zhao Ming's death. Naturally, Zhao Su wouldn't avenge Zhao Ming just because she had a good impression of him. Then what do you mean, Miss Yun? Yun Ruoyan was a little confused. Sister, why beat around the bush? Let me talk to her, Zhao Chang interjected. Zhao Gang took over the conversation and said, that Zhao Ming borrowed my sister's fish core. My sister wants to ask if you've seen it? Yun Ruoyan recalled that she had indeed seen Zhao Ming holding a pearl in his mouth during their battle in the lake. However, after Zhao Ming had been killed by Rong Yueshan, he had sunk to the bottom of the lake, and when Zhui Yifeng had fished him out, Yun Ruoyan hadn't found the pearl on his corpse. At the time, Yun Ruoyan hadn't paid much attention to such details, but now she did. I saw Zhao Ming being killed by Rong Yueshan at close range, so she must have taken the pearl with her, Yun Ruoyan said. Rong Yueshan was also dead, and her corpse must have been transported to the capital along with Yun Ruoyao's. It wouldn't be easy to find the pearl. Zhao Chang, however, didn't believe Yun Ruoyan's guess. You say that Miss Rong took my sister's pearl, but Miss Rong says that you took it. One of you must be lying, so who do you think I should believe? Zhao Gang's words surprised Yun Ruoyan. She frowned and asked, which Miss Rong are you referring to? How many Miss Rongs can there be in the capital? Isn't it that Miss Rong from the Imperial Uncle's manor? Zhao Chang glanced sideways at Yun Ruoyan. As soon as Zhao Chang said this, the Lin sisters were equally bewildered. Wasn't Rong Yueshan dead? Hadn't she died right in front of them? Why had she suddenly reappeared? Could it be that she hadn't died at all? Both of them turned to Yun Ruoyan in unison. Although Yun Ruoyan was bewildered, she didn't let it show on her face. She glanced at the Lin sisters for them to calm down, then turned to Zhao Chang. I didn't see her at the academy's allocation, so I thought she was... Yun Ruoyan paused for a moment before continuing. When and where did you see Rong Yueshan? Why don't you call her over so we can confront each other? That's a good idea. Zhao Chang was quite interested in Yun Ruoyan's suggestion. I saw her a few days ago when I was taking a stroll outside the Northern College. She was severely injured during the trial, but she's mostly recovered now, and the second elder has taken her in as a disciple. Although the academy was on vacation, a few students who were far away from home didn't return home. The Zhao siblings lived in the distant Mo kingdom, and a round trip would take more than half a month. As a result, the two of them had spent the past 15 days at Kongming Academy. She's actually still alive. Yun Ruoyan's heart sank. How lucky. Let's confront her right now. Do you dare? Zhao Chang looked at Yun Ruoyan provocatively. Miss Yun. Zhao Su, who had been silent all this time, spoke up. The pearl is very important to me and my family. If you've taken it, please return it to me. I don't want to make a big deal out of this. I don't want to waste my breath arguing over this matter, Yun Ruoyan said. Let's go to the Northern College and confront Rong Yueshan. The five of them left the Northern College. In the past half a month, Zhao Chang had basically figured out everything about Kongming Academy, and he led Yun Ruoyan's group toward the Northern College. The gates of the Northern College, which had been closed for half a month, were now open. Quite a few outer disciples were cleaning the grounds, and the five of them walked in. Hey, who are you? Why do you look so unfamiliar? You must be new students, right? A slightly older man blocked their path with a broom in one hand. School hasn't started yet, so you can't just barge in. This man wore a gray robe and was clearly an outer disciple. However, from his mannerisms, it was clear that he had been at Kongming Academy for a long time. Old foxes like him were easily bullied, and even some of the more timid formal disciples couldn't escape their wrath. Wang Gang replied disdainfully, We're new students, but we're not from the Northern College. Then what are you doing here? We're here to find Miss Rong Yueshan. There's something we'd like to ask her. Wang Gang was an elite of a large family in the Qin Kingdom, and he could easily put on airs to intimidate others. Seeing that Wang Gang wasn't a pushover, the outer disciple restrained himself a little. Wait here, I'll go inform Rong Yueshan. The group watched as the outer disciple ran to the back of the hall and waited quietly. Before long, the outer disciple ran back to inform Wang Meng that Miss Rong wasn't feeling well and was resting, and that Yun Ruoyan and Wang Meng would return another day. The group had no choice but to return and wait for another opportunity. Do you know why I was so sure that you had the pearl? Wang Gang asked Yun Ruoyan on the way back. No, Yun Ruoyan replied honestly. Why? Now's not the time to tell you. You'll find out in the future, Wang Meng replied. In the back of Kongming Academy, Rong Yueshan was sitting cross-legged in a courtyard. After half a month of recuperation, her body was much better than before. Furthermore, with the second elder and Rong Tianhai's help, her cultivation had improved significantly. She was now a peak 7th rank blade master, and she was even on the verge of breaking through to the 8th rank. I didn't expect you to be even more talented than your sister, Rong Yuehong, Rong Tianhai commented as soon as he saw Rong Yueshan open her eyes. I have to thank Master for clearing my meridians, Rong Yueshan replied. Back in the imperial territory, Rong Yueshan had been severely injured by Yun Ruoyan and on the verge of death. The second elder had rescued her from a pile of corpses and used his domineering spiritual energy to heal her spiritual vortex. During the treatment process, Rong Yueshan's meridians, which weren't very smooth in the past, were smoothed out by the second elder's tyrannical spirit force. This directly caused Rong Yueshan's cultivation speed to be much faster than before, and her cultivation was progressing even faster. Why didn't you meet those people outside when they came looking for you? Rong Tianhai asked. He had seen Rong Yueshan use the excuse that she wasn't feeling well to send Yun Ruoyan and the others away. "You're not afraid of them, are you?" Rong Yueshan had been severely injured by Yun Ruoyan, so it wasn't impossible for her to be afraid of Yun Ruoyan. Rong Yueshan laughed coldly. Other than her father, there was no one else in the world that she would be afraid of. "Since they came looking for trouble, I naturally had to choose a place where I could be surrounded and slapped in the face," Rong Yueshan replied. "There aren't many people here right now, so I'll have to wait until the start of school tomorrow to teach her a lesson in front of everyone." Chapter 223. After bathing, Yun Ruoyan leaned against the window and looked out at the sea of clouds. There was no wind tonight, and the sea of clouds was unusually calm. She seemed to be thinking about many things, but at the same time she didn't seem to be thinking about anything at all. Feeling a little warmth in her chest, she reached out and took out the item she'd kept close to her chest. The snow-white pearl in her palm glowed with a warm luster. Not only could this pearl allow the wearer to breathe freely in water, but it could also adjust to the temperature of the outside world, making the wearer feel comfortable. Yun Ruoyan had always known that this pearl was a treasure, but seeing how nervous the Zhao siblings were today, it was clear that it was far more valuable than she had expected. Autumn had passed and winter was just around the corner. Even though there was no wind, the air was unusually cold. Even with her spiritual energy to protect herself, Yun Ruoyan still felt the chill. After looking at the sea of clouds for a while, she prepared to close the window and sleep. Just as she was halfway through closing the window, a red sword aura suddenly emerged from the sea of clouds, speeding toward Yun Ruoyan. Li Mo's sword aura was green, Yun Maxiao's was yellow, and Shui Yun's and Mo Yun's were both green and yellow. However, this was the first time Yun Ruoyan had seen a sword aura as red as this. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but stop closing the window and look at the red sword aura through the crack in the window. As the sword aura drew closer and closer, Yun Ruoyan infused her eyes with spiritual energy to strengthen her vision. She could clearly see that the person standing on the sword aura was also a black-robed man. When the sword aura reached Yun Ruoyan's cottage, it rose higher and flew past the roof of the cottage. At the same time, Yun Ruoyan sensed an unfamiliar yet somewhat familiar aura. Yun Ruoyan hurriedly ran to the side room and opened the small window that she rarely opened, facing the north. Through the window, she saw the red sword aura land in the courtyard. Yun Ruoyan wasn't very familiar with the courtyard, and she didn't know whose house it was. However, Yun Ruoyan was certain that she had encountered this aura before. She had only encountered it by accident, so she didn't have a deep impression of it. Yun Ruoyan thought back carefully, and a moment later, she had an impression. About a month ago, they had been escorted by Yun Maxiao from the capital to the Kongming Mountains. Along the way, they had encountered a group of strange horse thieves, who had revealed their identity as herbalists when Zhui Yifeng had shot them. Yun Ruoyan had sensed a powerful aura before the two bandits had appeared, but it had only appeared for a brief moment before disappearing without a trace. Yun Ruoyan had always suspected that the owner of this powerful aura was the creator of the medicinal puppets, but she had never had a chance to find out the truth. "It's this aura." Yun Ruoyan was certain of this. "I'd like to see what you're up to, hiding your head and showing your tail." She didn't even have time to put on her outer robe. Wearing only a thin white robe, she leaped out of the small window and charged toward where the sword had landed. Soon, she arrived at the place where the sword light had landed. There were 2 rows of houses and a few independent houses. Only one of the houses was lit and the rest were dark. It was already late at night, and almost all the students were asleep. There had to be a ghost lurking in the middle of the night. Yun Ruoyan retracted her aura and walked lightly to the window of the brightly lit house. She pressed her ear to the window and listened for any movements within. Indeed, she could hear the voices of a man and a woman. The woman was none other than the young miss of the Li family, Li Furong, who had clashed with Lin Qingxue earlier in the day. The man's voice was unfamiliar to Yun Ruoyan. However, he didn't retract his aura, and Yun Ruoyan could tell from his aura that he was the one who had arrived on the red sword light. After sensing his aura from afar, Yun Ruoyan was even more certain that this was the hidden cultivator she had encountered on the road. Based on his aura, this person's cultivation was definitely much higher than hers. If he discovered her, he would definitely be able to kill her on the spot with a wave of spiritual energy. As a result, Yun Ruoyan didn't dare to act rashly. All she could do was retract her aura, hold her breath, and perk up her ears to listen to their conversation. "What did you signal me for?" the man asked, his tone dissatisfied. "Look at my hand." Li Furong didn't answer the man's question directly. Instead, she spoke in a flirtatious tone. "How did you do it?" The man's dissatisfaction was replaced by concern. Master. Li Furong suddenly cried out pitifully, I was bullied. You have to help me vent my anger. Li Furong addressed the man as Master, but her tone sounded as if she were talking to a lover. Xuanhuan suppressed the goosebumps rising all over her body and continued listening. These are all small matters, the man coaxed softly. Once you've accomplished what I've tasked you with, you'll be able to teach anyone in Kongming Academy a lesson other than the 6 elders a lesson. Really? Li Furong's tone was filled with a smile, clearly satisfied with the man's response. I knew you'd love me the most, Master. Of course. The man laughed. In order to send you to Kongming Academy, I lost 2 of my medicinal puppets, and it took me a great deal of effort to refine them. You'll have to steal the all-seeing mirror to make up for my losses. The man's words confirmed Xuanhuan's suspicions. This man was indeed the master of those 2 medicinal puppets. What shocked Xuanhuan even more was the fact that this man wanted to steal the all-seeing mirror. After all, the all-seeing mirror was one of Kongming Academy's most prized treasures. Who could it be that dared to steal it? Who would be so bold as to do so? Xuanhuan's curiosity was piqued. She dipped her finger in saliva and poked a hole in the paper window, peering inside with one eye. Who's there? As soon as she poked a hole in the paper window, the man sensed her presence. What's the matter, Master? Li Furong asked. There seems to be someone outside. The man walked up to the door, opened it slightly and poked his head out. However, there was no one outside. How could there be anyone in the middle of the night? Li Furong asked. Kongming Academy has always been proud of its steep terrain and its protective arrays. As a result, there's never been any night patrols, so no one would be able to discover you. The man didn't seem to think much of Li Furong's words. It's better to be safe than sorry. I don't want to ruin all my plans just because someone discovered me. This isn't a good place to stay, so I have to leave. Master. Li Furong hurriedly pulled him back. The black mist spider you gave me to protect myself was killed by that Xuanhuan. What? The black mist spider was killed. Yes, it's that damned Xuanhuan. Li Furong briefly recounted the incident with Xuanhuan's group earlier in the day to the black-clad man. I fed that black mist spider over a long period of time with dozens of different poisons. Most magical beasts would be able to kill it with a single bite, the man murmured, his heart pained. How could it be killed so easily? The black mist spider had been killed by Xuanhuan in a single blow, so no one had realized how powerful it was. What they didn't know was that Li Furong, whose cultivation was even lower than Lin Qingxue's, had relied on that black mist spider to survive the trial several times. From this, one could see just how powerful it was. The man was shocked that the black mist spider had been killed so easily, or that Xuanhuan was a very powerful character. Just as the man was guessing, Li Furong's angry voice rang out once more. That Xuanhuan ambushed me. How despicable. Once I'm done, Master, you must kill Xuanhuan to avenge the black mist spider. Li Furong said angrily. Then, with a pitiful tone, she said, My cultivation is too low. If I don't have anything to protect myself, I'm afraid I won't be able to protect myself. Master, can you give me something to protect myself? All right. As the man spoke, he didn't move at all. He stretched out his hand, and a small green snake coiled around its body appeared in his open palm. This little snake is also highly venomous. Although it's not as venomous as the black mist spider, it can still kill an ordinary person with a single bite. Even those with high cultivation will be in big trouble if they get bitten, the man said as he handed the snake over to Li Furong. Li Furong stretched out her hand towards the snake, and it slithered into her sleeve along the back of her hand. In the future, unless it's something very important, don't send me a signal so casually, the man instructed before flying off on his sword. Xuanhuan's petite figure was quietly hidden in a corner of the house's eaves. The man's sudden alertness had caused Xuanhuan to break out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, she was small and nimble, and she was able to leap onto the narrow roof of the house. Worried that the black-robed man would suddenly turn around and attack her, Xuanhuan curled up in the corner for quite a while. Only when she was certain that there was no danger did she land on the ground and quickly return to her own room. This was a serious matter, and Xuanhuan decided to inform Li Mo of it as soon as possible. The next morning, Xuanhuan headed to the Southern College. Today was the first day of the new semester, and the gates to the Southern College were already open. Xuanhuan circled around the front of the college and headed straight for the Southern Tower. Along the way she bumped into Tsang Song. Kongming Academy didn't have a specific principal. Instead, it was governed by a council of 6 elders. At the same time, the elders were also in charge of the 3 halls and 5 colleges. However, they were usually busy with cultivation and teaching elite students, and didn't have much time or energy to personally manage the complicated affairs of the academy. As a result, each of the 5 colleges had a provost. Apart from a few important decisions that required the elders to make, most of the academic affairs were left to the provost and instructors. Xianxia was the provost of the Southern College. Xianxia was around 40 years old, much younger than the 6 elders, but his seniority was the same as theirs. Unfortunately, his cultivation was much lower, and he didn't have the right to enter the Council of Elders. Instead, he became a provost. "Greetings, Senior Tsang." Xuanhuan walked up to Xianxia and bowed. Xianxia had been in charge of quite a few matters during the selection of the new students. Xuanhuan was more familiar with him than the other provost and instructors, and he gave Xuanhuan a rather righteous impression. "Where are you going in such a hurry?" Xianxia asked when he saw Xuanhuan's hasty footsteps. Clearly, she had something urgent to attend to. Chapter 224. "Senior, I'm heading to the tower to find my master." Xuanhuan bowed. "There's no need for that," Xianxia replied amiably. "I just came from the tower and your master wasn't there." "Then is the first elder here?" "The first elder left with your master and they haven't returned yet. If you have anything urgent to discuss, you can tell me." Xianxia's gaze landed on Xuanhuan, as if he were appreciative of a junior. Xuanhuan had reported the matter of the horse thieves to the academy as soon as she entered, and Xianxia and a few other administrators had sought her out for questioning. As a result, Xianxia was aware of the matter. Since neither Li Mo nor the first elder were present, it seemed reasonable for her to report the matter to Xianxia. As a result, she told Xianxia about the black-robed man, as well as the conversation she had overheard between the black-robed man and Li Furong. "Did you see what the black-robed man looked like?" Xianxia was just as shocked by Xuanhuan's words as Xuanhuan was. Xuanhuan shook her head. "At first, I was eavesdropping from outside so I couldn't see what he looked like. By the time I had a chance to peek into the room, I was discovered, so I hid myself and didn't see what he looked like." "In that case, let's not alert him for now," Xianxia instructed. "I'll send someone to keep an eye on Li Furong. Someone who dares to steal the all-seeing mirror is surely no ordinary person, so we'll have to wait for the first elder to return before we make a decision." Xuanhuan nodded, then followed Xianxia out of the Southern College and toward the plaza. Today was the first day of school, and according to Kongming Academy's usual practice, all of the students, seniors and freshmen alike, were to head to the plaza for a roll call. Xuanhuan followed Xianxia all the way to the plaza, where a large crowd had already gathered. The seniors who had gone out to train during the new student selection had also returned, and there were nearly 1,000 students gathered in the plaza. On the high platform in the square, only the 6th elder was present. The rest of the elders were not present. For a routine roll call like this, most elders would not come. There was a reason why the 6th elder appeared this time. Yesterday, Zhuo Yifeng had gone to the first elder to discuss the matter of changing schools. However, the first elder wasn't around, so he went straight to the 6th elder. The 6th elder was naturally overjoyed when he heard Zhuo Yifeng's request to switch schools to the Central Academy. Hence, the 6th elder appeared on the plaza. He wanted to personally call out the names of the students from the Central College and select Zhuo Yifeng to enter the Central College. "Ruoyan, we're over here." Lin Qingxin and Lin Qingxue waved at Xuanhuan when they saw her. Xuanhuan greeted Xianxia before walking over to join the Southern College's contingent. The students from the 5 colleges had split into 5 groups, standing neatly in the plaza. Xuanhuan and the other freshmen had also changed into the white uniforms of Kongming Academy. As far as the eye could see, it was a vast expanse of snow white. It was quite a spectacular sight. Xianxia walked up to the stage in front of the plaza, where the 6th elder and the other administrators seemed to be waiting for him. "Senior Xianxia, why are you only here now?" one of the administrators from the Central College asked. The elders arrived quite early. The administrators present were all of the same generation as the elders, but their cultivation wasn't high enough to enter the Council of Elders. Entering the Council of Elders required one to be a peak blade master, and Xianxia was the one with the highest cultivation among the administrators. He had been stuck at 9th rank for almost 10 years. Generally speaking, he would never be able to reach that level in his lifetime. Xianxia smiled and said that he'd been delayed by some matters, then bowed to the 6th elder. "No need for formalities." The 6th elder stroked his beard. "When the roll call comes to the Central College, I'll do it myself. You don't have to do it on my behalf." There were nearly 1,000 students present, and it took quite a bit of effort to do the roll call. According to tradition, the Central College was the last to be called, and by the time the North, South, East, and West colleges were done, 4 hours would have passed. To the elders who treasured their time, 4 to 6 hours was precious. The administrators didn't know what the sixth elder was thinking, so they could only nod in agreement. Before long, Xianxia announced the start of the roll call. Starting from the East College, the administrator of the East College would begin the roll call. The administrator would hold up a register in his hand and read out the names one by one. The students whose names were called would raise their identity tokens. Xuanhuan discovered that after the Eastern College's steward finished counting a student's name, he would gently brush his hand over the name list, and the student's identity token would light up. Every nameplate emitted a different light. Some were red, some were blue, and some were other colors. I wonder if I'll advance this year. Just as Xuanhuan was wondering why the tokens glowed in different colors, the 2 seniors in the group next to her began whispering to each other. You were yellow last year, so you should be green by now. That's not necessarily true. When I first entered the academy, I spent 2 years at the red rank before I advanced. As she listened to their conversation, Xuanhuan roughly understood what the different colors of the tokens meant. Kongming Academy divided students into 5 ranks: red, yellow, blue, green, and violet, according to their performance. Students who had just entered the academy for the first time were all red, the lowest rank. Every year, at the roll call, they would be re-evaluated based on their performance in the previous year. There were about 200 students in the East College, but the roll call was unusually fast. After about 15 minutes, it was the South College's turn. Xuanhuan and the other freshmen were standing at the back of the group, so they were naturally called at the back. Yu Xiaozuan, Wang Feng, Qin Chang, and Zhou Huier. Following Xiangxia's roll call, the older students in the front raised their tokens one by one. Most of their tokens glowed blue, green, and violet. Some of them looked happy, likely because they'd advanced, while others looked disappointed, likely because they hadn't. Xuanhuan, Xiangxia called out. Xuanhuan imitated the other students and raised her token, which glowed red. The next to be called were Lin Qingqian and Lin Qingxue, but not Zhuo Yifeng. Xuanhuan couldn't help but turn back to look at Zhuo Yifeng, who was standing behind her. She guessed that he'd succeeded, and she couldn't help feeling a little regretful. Lin Qingxue also turned back to look at Zhuo Yifeng, her eyes full of sadness. Zhuo Yifeng, however, avoided their gazes. In just 2 hours, the roll call for the East, South, West, and North colleges was complete. Finally, when it was time for the Central College, the 6th elder personally stood at the front of the line. Zhuo Yifeng. The 6th elder immediately called out Zhuo Yifeng's name. Under everyone's gaze, Zhuo Yifeng raised the identity card in his hand. Why are you still standing with the South College? Come over here. The 6th elder beckoned to Zhuo Yifeng, and Zhuo Yifeng walked towards the 6th elder under everyone's gaze. Senior elder, isn't this student from the South College? Xianxia asked, puzzled. Why is his name on the roll for the Central College? Oh, he found me yesterday and said that he wanted to be my student. I wanted to talk to senior elder about it, but he was away. The 6th elder's mustache curled up proudly. So I made the decision to accept him. As for the roll, I only made some minor changes. But, then it's decided. The 6th elder interrupted Xianxia, then turned to his own group of students and announced, there's no need to go through the roll call one by one. Everyone will be promoted, including the new students. The 6th elder waved his hand over the roll, and spiritual energy rippled across it. Then, the tokens in the hands of all the students from the Central College lit up at the same time. A commotion immediately broke out among the students. How can he do this? Those useless students from the Central College have always been the worst, but they've been promoted just like that? What a blatant cheating. Forget it. In any case, this isn't the first time the 6th elder has openly cheated. No matter how much he cheats, he can't turn a bad student into a good student. In contrast to the grumbling from the other colleges, the students from the Central College were all delighted. Being able to advance without any effort was the greatest benefit of coming to the Central College. As for whether or not they would be able to learn true skills, that wasn't important to them. Alright, I'll leave the rest to you. I'm going back to cultivate as soon as possible. The 6th elder clasped his hands behind his back and left, satisfied. The provost looked at each other and finally could only smile bitterly. The 6th elder could be considered a clean slate in Kongming Academy. He was usually amicable, and even when he cheated occasionally, he was very open about it. Moreover, if the students from the Central College didn't cheat, it would be too difficult for them to advance. Even if they did, they would only end up with a mediocre score. As a result, even the first elder turned a blind eye to this. After the roll call, Song Song dismissed the students and returned to their respective colleges. Yunruoyan stopped right there. Just as Yunruoyan was about to leave with the rest of the college, a familiar voice called out to her. Yunruoyan stopped in her tracks and looked in the direction of the voice. Her expression darkened. Rong Yueshan, Yi Qianyin, Pei Zio and Li Ferong walked over. What do you want? Lin Qingxue stepped forward and asked. Weren't you the ones who wanted to confront me yesterday? Rong Yueshan's gaze swept across the crowd before she called out, Zhao Gang, Zhao Su. Zhao Gang and Zhao Su heard the commotion and walked over, followed by some people from the east courtyard. When the two of them arrived in front of her, Rong Yueshan declared loudly, I'm certain that Yun Ruoyan was the one who took Zhao Su's pearl. Chapter 225. Rong Yuehong called out names and deliberately spoke loudly, instantly attracting the gazes of the crowd. Even many of the older students were drawn over. When Yun Ruoyan and the Lin sisters saw Rong Yuehong's actions, they knew that she was going to cause trouble again. Yun Ruoyan and Lin Qingchen were able to keep their composure, but Lin Qingxue was furious. What pearl? Who took it? Don't slander me. Rong Yueshan didn't seem to mind Lin Qingxue's anger. You don't have to be angry at me. The pearl isn't mine and I'm just telling you what I saw. You're slandering me? Lin Qingchen turned to Zhao Su. Miss Zhao, my sister wouldn't have taken anything from you. Don't listen to Rong Yueshan's side of the story. Lin Qingchen had a good impression of Zhao Su, and she felt that she was a reasonable person. What Lin Qingchen didn't expect, however, was for Zhao Su to speak with absolute certainty. Miss Yun, I told you that I didn't want to make a big deal out of this. That pearl is really important to me and if I lose it, I won't be able to answer to my family. Please return it to me. Zhao Su's tone was so sincere that the onlookers couldn't help but believe that Yun Ruoyan was the one who had taken her pearl. What's a pearl? Why haven't I heard of it before? Someone in the crowd asked, confused. It's the core of a 300-year-old fish monster, refined by a highly skilled forge master. It's incredibly valuable, someone in the crowd explained. A knowledgeable person in the crowd explained, you can breathe freely underwater if you put the fish core in your mouth. It's rare to see it in the Li Kingdom, and it's only found in the Qin Kingdom, which is near the ocean. It's no wonder that someone would take such a treasure and refuse to return it. If I had seen it, I probably wouldn't have been able to resist taking it for myself. That's right, what a treasure. After listening to this person's explanation, the crowd let out a sigh. If the pearl was just an ordinary treasure, it wouldn't be a big deal, the man continued. In the Qin Kingdom, the pearl is only passed down to females, not males. For a family to pass it down to a girl is an affirmation of her status. At the same time, the pearl is an important dowry for this girl when she marries. If she loses it, it will greatly affect her future status and marriage. So that's how it is. No wonder the Zhao siblings were so anxious. To ruin someone else's future because of a moment of greed, this is not just a moment of greed, but an act of immorality. The crowd began to gossip about Yun Ruoyan, as if they were certain that the person who had stolen the pearl was Yun Ruoyan. Hearing the discussion of the crowd and seeing that Zhao Su's anxious expression didn't seem to be fake, the Lin sisters guessed that she had indeed lost her fish bolus. But the fact that Zhao Su had pinned the crime on Yun Ruoyan before presenting any concrete evidence had caused the Lin sisters' impression of her to plummet. Miss Zhao, said Lin Qingchen, we understand that you're anxious after losing your fish core. But you have no proof. What makes you think that my sister took the fish pill? I think it was most likely Rong Yuehong who took it. Lin Qingchen pointed a finger at Rong Yueshan. It's not uncommon for a thief to cry thief, is it not, Miss Zhao? There's no need to quibble, Zhao Chang replied. Yun Ruoyan really did take the fish core. My sister was kind enough to give you a chance. If you don't know what's good for you, don't blame me for using force. Zhao Chang's words were even more certain than Zhao Su's, and the crowd was even more certain that Yun Ruoyan was the one who had taken the fish core. Oh, you were quite certain yesterday that I was the one who took the fish core. Yun Ruoyan, who hadn't tried to defend herself this entire time, finally spoke up. I'd like to know why you're so sure. After Yun Ruoyan finished speaking, she looked at Zhao Gang with her clear eyes, and a faint smile hung at the corner of her mouth. Zhao Chang was momentarily stunned. In his mind, Yun Ruoyan would try all sorts of ways to deny her guilt, or perhaps even beg for mercy in the end. But Yun Ruoyan didn't fall for either of those scenarios. From start to finish, she had been watching them put on a show. If not for the fact that he had concrete proof that the fish core was in Yunruoyan's possession, he really would have thought that Yunruoyan was innocent. But now Zhao Chang was certain that Yunruoyan was putting on an act. As a result, he smiled coldly. There really are people in this world who are so afraid of death that they dig a hole for themselves. Since you won't repent until you see your coffin, I'll fulfill your wish. Zhao Chang reached into his robes and took out a pendant. It was a white, bone-like object tied to a red string. This is a pendant made from the skull of a 1,000-year-old fish monster. Zhao Chang showed the object in his hand to the crowd. The fish core has a sensing effect. Zhao Chang moved the bone pendant closer to Yunruoyan. Indeed, the bone began to glow, and the closer it was to Yunruoyan, the brighter it became. Because the crowd was almost certain that Yunruoyan was the one who had taken the fish core, they weren't too surprised by this result. What else do you have to say now? Zhao Chang looked at Yunruoyan with a burning gaze. Are you going to hand over the fish core yourself, or do you want me to do it myself? How embarrassing. Yi Qianying, who had been standing to the side, took this opportunity to add insult to injury. Yunruoyan, you're the sole wife-born daughter of the Yun family. How could you commit such a despicable act of theft? You're a disgrace to the Yun family. Everyone else had only said that Yunruoyan had taken the fish core, and even the Zhao siblings had only said that she had stolen it, but Yi Qianying had used the word theft directly. Although there was only a difference of a single word between theft and theft, the nature of the accusation was far worse than it had been. As expected, those who knew of the Yun family began to discuss the matter. Is she the sole wife-born daughter of the Yun family? I've heard that the imperial family of the Li Kingdom has always been known for their noble character. How could they have produced a thieving daughter? So what if she's the sole wife-born daughter of the Yun family? Anyone who sees a treasure will be tempted by it. In the imperial territory, everyone has resorted to all sorts of methods to obtain treasures. It's just that no one has brought it up in the open. That's true, but since you've taken someone else's item, you'd have to hide it well. Now that you've been discovered, it would be foolish of you to deny it. Ha! Yunruoyan laughed coldly. You think I'm the one who took the fish core just because of this glowing stone? How laughable. Yes, laughable, laughable indeed, Lin Qingxue continued. Of course it's not just this fishbone. Don't you have me as a witness? With both evidence and witnesses present, there's no need for you to quibble and hand over the fish core. Rong Yueshan smiled wickedly. Otherwise, if we hand you over to the Hall of Penitence and punish you as a thief, things won't be as amicable as they are now. Your two sisters might even be treated as accomplices as well. Yunruoyan glanced at Rong Yueshan coolly, ignoring her provocative words. Instead she turned to Zhao Chang and Zhao Su. Are you sure that I'm the one who took the fish core? Of course. My fishbone can't be wrong. Zhao Chang was clearly certain of this. Miss Yun, please return the fish pill to me. Otherwise you'll be the one to suffer, Zhao Su said. Her tone was filled with impatience. She couldn't understand why Yunruoyan was still as stubborn as a rock, not showing the slightest hint of repentance. I don't have any grudges with the two of you, Yunruoyan replied nonchalantly. So I'd like to give you a piece of advice. What you see and what you hear can often mislead you, and you might even end up being used by others without even realizing it. What a joke. Yunruoyan's words seemed to infuriate Zhao Chang. Would I, Zhao Chang, be used by others? I'll make it clear today, if you weren't the one who took my sister's fish core, I'll kowtow to you in front of everyone. Oh. Yunruoyan raised an eyebrow. Are you serious? Zhao Gang was an extremely conceited person. In the imperial territory, Yunruoyan had taken advantage of him and Wang Meng's battle with the magical beast to steal the Amaranthan sun from behind. Then she had tricked both Zhao Gang and Wang Meng with a deceptive trick. From then on, he didn't have a good impression of Yunruoyan. As a result, when he heard from Rong Yueshan that the fish core was in Yunruoyan's hands, he couldn't wait to teach her a lesson. If not for Zhao Su's persuasion, he would have made trouble for Yunruoyan long ago. But reality had proven that not only was Yunruoyan cunning, but she was also an ungrateful brat. His sister's good intentions had been wasted. A gentleman keeps his word, Zhao Chang raised his voice. Zhao Chang raised his voice. But if it turns out that you're the thief who stole the pearl, not only will you kowtow to me, you'll have to stand on the plaza's platform and shout 10 times that I, Yunruoyan, am a shameless thief. You're the shameless thief. Lin Qingxue pointed at Zhao Chang angrily. All right. Yunruoyan also said loudly, since that's the case, I'll teach you a good lesson today. Yunruoyan reached into her robes and took out the fish core that she wore on her chest, placing it in front of Zhao Chang. Do you see it clearly? Yun Ruoyan replied. I do have a fish core, but it's surnamed Yun, not Zhao. The fish core in Yun Ruoyan's hand exuded a warm aura, drawing everyone's attention to it. Wow, what a pure aura. What a treasure. The fish core in Yun Ruoyan's hand was larger and smoother than Zhao Su's, and it was of a much higher quality. Zhao Su's face instantly turned red. It seemed that the siblings had really misunderstood Yun Ruoyan, or perhaps as Yun Ruoyan had said, they had been used. Chapter 226. Zhao Chang's thoughts were exactly the same as Zhao Su's, and both of them glared at Rong Yueshan angrily. Unexpectedly, however, Rong Yueshan spoke up. Yes, it's this pearl. I saw Yun Ruoyan retrieve it from Zhao Ming's corpse with my own eyes. Yun Ruoyan, you're the one who brought out the stolen item, so are you still going to deny it? The Zhao siblings couldn't help but stare blankly at Rong Yueshan's words. Rong Yueshan looked at Zhao Chang and continued, What are you waiting for? Hurry up and retrieve your sister's pearl. The Zhao siblings finally understood what Rong Yueshan was getting at. She was pointing a deer at a horse. As soon as Rong Yueshan spoke, Yun Ruoyan understood her intentions. No one present had ever seen what Zhao Su's pearl looked like, so as long as they insisted that the pearl in her hand was Zhao Su's, Yun Ruoyan really wouldn't be able to prove it. Take a good look. Is this pearl yours? Yun Ruoyan's eyes sharpened. It's not dash. As soon as Zhao Su opened her mouth, Zhao Chang grabbed her hand and shook his head imperceptibly. If they couldn't retrieve the pearl, Zhao Su would inevitably be punished by the family, and Zhao Chang would have to kowtow to Yun Ruoyan in front of everyone. A man's knees were gold, and he would rather be killed than forced to kneel. As a result, he couldn't admit that he had wronged Yun Ruoyan. This is my sister's pearl, Zhao Chang replied. You've lost. Nonsense. This was clearly my sister's, so how did it become yours? Lin Qingxue shouted. It looks like you're trying to take away my sister's pearl. Lin Qingchen said angrily. Miss Zhao, you're not trying to take away my sister's pearl, are you? Zhao Su's heart was in turmoil. If she were the only one being punished, she wouldn't mind, but she couldn't allow her brother to kneel and apologize to someone else. As a result, she gritted her teeth and said, This is my pearl. Please return it to me, Miss Yun. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but sigh. Although she had quite a few conflicts with the Qin kingdom, she didn't have a bad impression of them. Yun Ruoyan felt that, although they were cruel to their opponents, their methods were still fair and just. Now, however, reality had once again proven that she was tainted by her company. Why should I give it to you? Yun Ruoyan's attitude suddenly hardened. Without hesitation, she tucked the pearl back into her robes. Rong Yueshan stepped forward and lied through her teeth. Just because you're a thief, if you don't return the fish pearl to the Zhao siblings today, don't even think about leaving. Rong Yueshan, I've seen shameless people before, but I've never seen someone as shameless as you. Yun Ruoyan laughed angrily. If you want to steal it, you'll have to have the ability to do so. Zhao, you're a man and you wouldn't bully as a girl. Use Zhao eyes as you. Ruish Chi Su. Her cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds, and now that she had the support of the second elder, she had been suppressing her desire to exact revenge on Yun Ruoyan for a long time. Yun Ruoyan took 2 steps back, dodging her sneak attack. However, Rong Yueshan didn't give Yun Ruoyan a chance to retaliate. She continued to attack Yun Ruoyan with powerful attacks. Yun Ruoyan was also surprised by Rong Yueshan's sudden burst of attack power. This was a completely different level of cultivation from the one she had displayed in the trial. It seemed that Rong Yueshan had indeed profited from her misfortune. Yun Ruoyan didn't have the Feilai blade to protect her, and she didn't dare to use the bracelet's amplification in front of so many experts. As a result, she could only parry Rong Yueshan's attacks. The crowd dispersed as the two of them began to fight. These two brats are getting serious, one of the attendants commented as he looked down at Yun Ruoyan and Rong Yuehong. They had wanted to leave, but the sudden quarrel below the stage had caused them to pause. Moreover, the ones who had started the quarrel weren't ordinary students. One was Yun Ruoyan, who had been accepted as the head disciple of an elder's disciple and had obtained a spiritual treasure from the trial. The other was Rong Yueshan, who had been accepted as an official disciple by the second elder. The conflict between the two of them had piqued the interest of the attendants. What they cared about wasn't who the pearl belonged to, but which of the two students representing the northern and southern colleges was stronger. That Yun Ruoyan is highly regarded by the southern college, but she doesn't seem to be much of a threat. The speaker was an attendant of the Western College. The fourth elder of the Western College had tried to snatch Yun Ruoyan away from the start, but he hadn't succeeded. Now he couldn't help but sound a little jealous. Xianxia, on the other hand, looked at the crowd below without saying a word. Yunruoyan, today I'll let you have a taste of what it's like to be seriously injured. Yuxian suddenly stopped attacking Yunruoyan. She clasped her hands in front of her, and a white spiritual aura formed in front of her. She made a series of hand seals, and the white spiritual energy morphed into a small white knife that flew toward Yunruoyan. Yunruoyan ducked and barely dodged the attack. The dagger struck the ground and dissipated into nothingness. The dagger didn't look particularly powerful, but when it brushed past Yunruoyan's body, she felt a strange chill emanate from it. "It's a low-level ice-attuned spiritual technique," an older student exclaimed. One of the older students in the crowd said, "I didn't expect this new student to master our Northern College's low-level external spiritual power cultivation method so quickly. It took me 2 years just to get started." In the early stages of cultivation, cultivators would usually cultivate some spiritual power cultivation methods to improve their own cultivation. They would not cultivate external spiritual power cultivation methods. There were 2 reasons for this. The first was that external techniques used up a lot of spiritual energy, and it was definitely a burden to those who didn't have a high level of cultivation. The second reason was more complicated. External attack techniques were divided into 4 major techniques, namely ice, fire, wood, and wind. It wasn't easy to determine which technique was most suitable for a person, and it required the help of an experienced master to find a suitable path. Finding the right technique would allow one to achieve twice the results with half the effort in the future. Conversely, not only would there be no improvement, but there might even be a chance that one's spiritual vortex would collapse. Therefore, even though external spiritual power cultivation methods were powerful, many cultivators would rather simply increase their spiritual power cultivation before they found a suitable cultivation direction. In battle, they would rely on the ingenuity of their techniques and the overflow of spiritual energy to attack rather than rashly train in external techniques. Even if he cultivated external spiritual power cultivation methods, he wouldn't casually use them if the enemy wasn't very strong. This was because the consumption of spiritual power was too great. As a result, Yunruoyan had almost never seen anyone in her circle using external techniques in battle. Much to her surprise, Yuxian was actually using the same technique to attack her. What Yunruoyan didn't know was that when the second elder was clearing up Yuxian's meridians and expanding her spiritual vortex, he had unintentionally discovered her talent for using an ice-attuned technique. As a result, he had used an extremely valuable spiritual pill to strengthen this talent. After being strengthened, Yuxian's cultivation was much more efficient. Although she could only shoot out 1 dagger at a time, it was more than enough to overwhelm Yunruoyan. Interesting, I didn't expect the second elder to have stumbled upon such a treasure. The proctor from the Central College said disinterestedly. This Yunruoyan's bound to lose, so I'll be leaving first. But make sure to keep an eye on her so that she doesn't die, or it won't be fun if Liemo goes berserk when he returns. The proctor from the Central College walked off the stage. Other than Zhuo Yifeng, who had just been taken away by the sixth elder, the rest of the students from the Central College were watching the show. The deacon didn't care about them and left alone. "Be careful." Lin Qingxue and Lin Qingchen cried out. Yuxian condensed 2 daggers of spiritual energy to attack Yunruoyan. Yunruoyan dodged the first dagger, but the second one barely grazed her face. Because these daggers had no weight, they were incredibly fast, and they could even change directions in midair, making it difficult for Yunruoyan to dodge them. The petal veil on Yunruoyan's face was sliced in 2 and fell to the ground. The fake birthmark on her face was also cut open, and fresh blood seeped out of the wound. At the same time, Yunruoyan felt a bone-chilling cold seep into her body through the wound, causing her to shiver involuntarily. "Humph, you're quite agile and you're quite fast at dodging." Yuxian laughed sinisterly. "With my current cultivation I can still condense 3 daggers of spiritual energy. How many more can you dodge?" As she spoke, Yuxian began to condense daggers once more. This Yunruoyan is clearly not a match for them. "Senior Xianxia, you'd better stop them from fighting, lest they lose control and kill someone," one of the proctors urged. Xianxia continued to look down without a word. Although it seemed like a small duel between Yunruoyan and Yuxian, it was also a matter of face for the Southern College and the Northern College. The South Courtyard represented the authority of the Great Elder, while the Second Elder of the North Courtyard was famous for being narrow-minded and protective of the people under him. Apart from Xianxia, none of the other proctors present were willing to interfere. "Today's the first day of school. I'll have to go back and prepare." The pale-faced proctor left the stage as soon as he finished speaking. I'm leaving as well. Senior Xianxia, I'll be going first. The others followed suit. Soon, Xianxia was the only one left on the platform. Just then, Xianxia left the stage and silently walked into the crowd. All of the students present were so focused on the duel between Yunruoyan and Rong Yueshan that none of them noticed Xianxia's arrival. In the middle of the crowd, Yunruoyan's hairband had been cut off by Rong Yueshan's dagger, and her hair was scattered everywhere, making her look a little disheveled. Another dagger flew at her and she twisted to dodge it, but a corner of her white robe was cut off. There's only one left. Yunruoyan steadied herself and looked at Rong Yueshan. After I dodge all of them, it'll be my turn to deal with you. This is the last one, take this. Rong Yueshan unhesitatingly threw her last spiritual knife at Yunruo. At this moment, an invisible cyclone shot out from Xianxia's hand. The cyclone caught up to Rong Yueshan's spirit energy knife at an even faster speed. The dagger's speed more than doubled, and it reached Yunruoyan in the blink of an eye. But Yunruoyan didn't seem to have reacted. Yunruoyan, don't blame me for being ruthless. It's your fault for meddling in other people's business in the middle of the night. Xianxia's eyes flashed with viciousness. Chapter 227. Yunruoyan, you asked for it. Don't blame me. Xianxia narrowed his eyes. The spiritual dagger had originally been aimed at Yunruoyan's shoulder, but after Xianxia had tampered with it, it suddenly changed its direction and headed straight for Yunruoyan's spiritual vortex. If Yunruoyan's spiritual vortex was pierced, she would undoubtedly die. This sudden change was so sudden that the spectators didn't even notice it. Yunruoyan felt a great sense of danger, but she didn't have the time to activate the bracelet's amplification to protect herself. Yunruoyan's face paled and she couldn't retreat in time. She could only watch helplessly as the danger approached. She opened her eyes wide as she looked at Rong Yueshan's smug expression. At that critical moment, a thin, silvery ray of light suddenly struck the dagger, shattering it into dust. Yunruoyan stumbled backward, unable to stabilize her footing. As she staggered, she heard cries of alarm by her ear. Following this commotion, a white-robed Liemo descended from midair. Yunruoyan felt something tighten around her waist, and her body was suspended in midair as she fell into a warm, solid embrace. It's Master Mo. Master Mo has appeared. These cries were all from the older students, and it was clear from their voices that they were very surprised and excited by Limeau's sudden appearance. Liemo. Yunruoyan called out as she looked at him from within Limeau's embrace. Her heart, which had been hanging high in the air, slowly settled back down. Liemo took note of Yunruoyan's shocked expression. He reached out and brushed his hand across her right cheek, where there was an obvious cut on the fake scar. Limeau's face gradually turned cold as if it were about to freeze. The noisy crowd instantly quietened down. After a moment of silence, a female student in the crowd muttered to herself, Master Mo made a move. Master Mo actually made a move to save this new student. Her tone was filled with surprise. That's right. I've been at Kongming Academy for 5 years now, and I've never even spoken to Master Mo, but this new student actually managed to make Master Mo take action, one of the male students muttered. Based on the student's understanding of Liemo, he wouldn't even bat an eye if someone were to die in a duel like this. However, to everyone's surprise, Liemo actually made a move today. Senior brother, senior sister, you might not know this, but this Miss Yun is Master Mo's new disciple, someone explained. Oh, so that's how it is. Everyone was enlightened. Suddenly, one of the older students raised his voice. What? Master Mo actually accepted a disciple? How is this possible? Liemo was a rather special existence in Kongming Academy. Although he was also an instructor, he wasn't in charge of specific classes like the other instructors. In reality, Liemo didn't spend much time at Kongming Academy. Most of the students only saw him during the various trials organized by the academy. However, Liemo's monstrous cultivation had won the hearts of the students' admiration and fascination. Even those whose seniority was higher than Liemo's held him in high regard. As a result, many of Kongming Academy's students dreamed of becoming Liemo's disciple. Unexpectedly, this dream had been shattered by a new student named Yunruoyan. Why would Master Mo accept her as his disciple? She doesn't look like anything special. That's right, and she even has an ugly birthmark on her face. She doesn't deserve to be Master Mo's disciple at all. The murmurs spread from a few students to the rest of the crowd. Yunruoyan was used to hearing such insults, so she didn't mind. However, Li Mo's gaze swept across the crowd coldly, and the murmurs immediately died down. The crowd quieted down once more. Are you hurt? Li Mo asked. Yun Ruoyan shook her head. Li Mo put Yun Ruoyan down before turning to look coldly at Rong Yueshan. Under Li Mo's gaze, Rong Yueshan immediately felt a wave of pressure, and her legs began to tremble. Rong Yueshan greets the slaughtering king. In the face of such overwhelming strength, Rong Yueshan had no choice but to lower her head and bow. There's no slaughtering king here, only Master Mo, Li Mo replied coldly. How dare you try to kill my disciple? Li Mo's voice didn't contain a trace of anger, but it was so cold that it made one panic. Although the people around her didn't sense anything amiss, Rong Yueshan could feel Li Mo's formless pressure. She felt as if someone was constantly putting down large rocks on her back. At first, Rong Yueshan's legs only trembled, but gradually she couldn't stand straight anymore and her legs began to buckle. Master Mo. Cold sweat beaded on Rong Yueshan's forehead. She felt that she wouldn't be able to hold on much longer. My master told me that sparring with fellow disciples can help me advance in cultivation. I just wanted to spar with Yun Ruoyan. Rong Yueshan struggled to finish these two sentences, and she felt as if she couldn't breathe properly. However, she was confident that Li Mo wouldn't dare do anything to her if she used the second elder as a shield. You'll have to pay the price for hurting my disciple. Li Mo frowned and the pressure increased once more. His voice was cold to the point of freezing. Finally, Rong Yueshan couldn't hold on any longer and knelt on the ground. Senior, what are you doing? A voice called out from the crowd. Everyone turned toward the source of the voice. It was Rong Tianhai. Rong Tianhai walked up to Rong Yueshan and waved his hand. A faint wave of spiritual energy flowed out of his palm and landed on Rong Yueshan's body. Rong Yueshan immediately felt much more relaxed. However, just as she tried to stand up, the pressure increased again and she knelt on the ground once more. Senior, your disciple only suffered some minor injuries in a normal sparring match. If you go too far, the second elder won't let you off easily, will he? Rong Tianhai asked as he used his spiritual energy to alleviate the pressure Li Mo was exerting on Rong Yueshan. Then let the second elder punish me, Li Mo replied nonchalantly. You. Uncle, I can't take it anymore. Rong Yueshan's hands were on the ground, and her expression was one of agony. Upon seeing this, Rong Tianzong retracted his spiritual energy and pushed a hand toward Li Mo, sending out a row of icicles. Li Mo lightly waved a hand, and a gust of wind rose up and shattered the icicles in midair. The intermediate icicle technique versus the intermediate wind screen technique. Although both of them were using intermediate external spiritual techniques, the difference in their cultivation was immediately apparent. Master Mo really is amazing. Rong Tianhai used 30% of his cultivation, but Master Mo used less than a tenth to neutralize it so easily. That's right. How high do you think Master Mo's cultivation is? It looks like he's at least a 9th rank blade master. The students began to discuss excitedly. Rong Tianhai's anger began to rise. If he didn't retaliate, how would he be able to maintain his reputation in front of his students in the future? Rong Tianhai struck out with both palms, still using a mid-grade icicle technique, but his cultivation instantly rose to the peak of 8th rank. Very quickly, a dense cluster of icicles formed in front of him, and as he pushed his palms forward, the dense cluster of icicles shot toward Li Mo and Yun Ruoyan at the same time. Nearly 100 icicles shot toward Rong Yueshan, causing everyone present to gasp in shock. If it had been someone of average cultivation, they would have been turned into a porcupine by now. Li Mo finally retracted his pressure on Rong Yueshan. He retracted his spiritual energy and made a seemingly simple hand seal, and countless small cyclones, invisible to the naked eye, appeared in front of him. Hundreds of icicles faced hundreds of cyclones, but they were still destined to be smashed into smithereens. Master Mo is amazing. Most of the cheers came from the Southern College. Although the Northern College's students were intimidated by Li Mo, they didn't dare make a sound. Let's stop here, Rong Tianhai said, his hands clasped behind his back. Li Mo suddenly asked, have you been nearby all this time or have you just arrived? Rong Tianhai hesitated. I just came from the academy. If I'd been here, I wouldn't have allowed them to fight. That's not right, Li Mo thought. The icicle that had been aimed at Yun Ruoyan seemed ordinary, but it was imbued with a relatively high level of spiritual energy. Someone had clearly tampered with it nearby. Song Song had slipped away as soon as Li Mo arrived, so Li Mo didn't notice him. However, Rong Tianhai's uneasy expression fell into Li Mo's eyes. A wave of anger rose in Li Mo's heart. If he hadn't arrived in time, he wouldn't have dared to imagine what would have happened to his xianxia. Li Mo raised his hands and a dazzling spiritual light appeared in front of him, forming a whirlwind of spiritual energy. Xuanhuan had seen Li Mo use this technique before, during his battle with the old man in the Dragon Vein Cave. It had been extremely powerful. A high-grade wind spiritual technique. Rong Tianhai exclaimed. Senior brother, what are you doing? I said that anyone who hurts me will have to pay the price. Li Mo's expression terrified Rong Tianhai. There was no way he would be able to withstand this wind spiritual technique. Just as everyone thought that Li Mo was about to attack Rong Tianhai and Rong Yueshan, he stopped. The spiritual energy dissipated and the whirlwind gradually stopped. Junior brother, I hope that you'll remember not to let something like this happen a second time, Li Mo said coolly, his hands clasped behind his back. Seeing that Li Mo was only trying to scare him, Rong Tianhai immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Although he was infuriated, he had no choice but to admit defeat. Of course. In order to regain some of his pride, Mo Tianhai intentionally raised his voice and announced to the surrounding students, in the future you must be careful when you fight with your fellow disciples. If you injure a fellow disciple, you'll be sent to the Hall of Penitence and punished severely. Very well. Li Mo turned to Xuanhuan, and in a voice that only the two of them could hear he said, I still have something to do, so I'll visit you tonight. Li Mo couldn't help but stretch out his hand toward Xuanhuan. Startled, Xuanhuan hurriedly took a step back and bowed. Goodbye, master. Li Mo knew that Xuanhuan was trying to avoid arousing suspicion in front of others, and he awkwardly retracted his hand. You're my only disciple in the academy. Don't let anyone bully you or you'll tarnish my reputation. Xuanhuan looked at Li Mo's expression and couldn't help but smile. Yes, master. Chapter 228. But Master Yener has a problem. Xuanhuan took out the pearl. The Zhao siblings lost their pearl and now they're certain that the pearl in my hand was theirs. Moreover, Rong Yueshan has testified that I took their pearl. But this fish pill was clearly a gift from Master to this disciple. This disciple really can't defend himself. There's such a thing? Li Mo turned toward the Zhao siblings. Zhao Chang had heard many legends about Li Mo during his time at Kongming Academy, and he was far more familiar with his prowess than any of the other new students. The fact that Li Mo had forced Rong Tianhai into a disadvantageous position with 2 simple blows only proved that the rumors were true. In a place like Kongming Academy, where strength was everything, even the arrogant Zhao Chang couldn't help but feel a little guilty. Reporting to Master Mo, my eyes were playing tricks on me just now, Zhao Gang said sensibly. Mistaken? Are you sure? I am sure. The pearl's appearance is very similar and I didn't take a closer look. Now, I'm certain that this isn't my sister's pearl. The slaughtering king, no Master Mo. Lin Qingxue stepped forward. The Xiao Chang is truly despicable. Not only did he try to take away my sister's things, he even said that he wanted her to shout that I was a shameless thief. Yes, and he even said that if he wronged her, he should kowtow to her, Lin Qingchen added. Even the usually good-tempered Lin Qingchen had been angered. Is that so? Li Mo glanced at Zhao Chang. Master Mo, Zhao Su hurriedly explained, my brother was impulsive just now. Please don't blame him. There's a price to pay for being impulsive. Surely you don't need me to teach you what to do, Li Mo replied coldly. Zhao Chang clenched his fists and knelt down in front of Xuanhuan, kowtowing 3 times at once. Then he stood up and squeezed his way out of the crowd. Brother? Zhao Su chased after him. Li Mo flew toward the southern tower, Rong Tianhai called for the students to return to their respective colleges, and Xuanhuan and the Lin sisters headed toward the southern college for their first day of classes. At the top of the southern tower, Li Mo and the first elder stood with their backs to the railing. If I hadn't stopped you just now, would you have attacked Rong Tianhai? The great elder looked at the square where the crowd was dispersing. When he had seen Li Mo use the wind spirit technique from afar, he had hurriedly used his mental energy to stop Li Mo. He could clearly feel Li Mo's rage. Li Mo didn't respond to the first elder's question, as that would be a tacit admission. The first elder couldn't help but sigh, then a faint smile appeared on his face. I never imagined that your mother would still be on the Xuanhuan continent. As he said this, the Grand Elder couldn't help but recall the scene when he saw Empress Shuetong last night. At that time he was so excited that he couldn't even speak. What my mother left behind is only a sliver of her spiritual sense attached to the jade statue. Li Mo's gaze landed on the distant sea of clouds, where a flock of large birds was flying. For more than a decade, Mother has been trapped in the jade statue day and night without a shred of freedom. Must have been very painful. I swear that I'll find my mother's body and revive her. Grand Elder nodded lightly, recalling the gentle Empress Xue Tong and the cold voice from last night. It was like they were two different people. Madam knows of your filial piety, and she told me to keep an eye on you. She said that you mustn't put yourself in danger because of your impulsiveness. The first elder turned to Li Mo. She also told me to pay special attention to that girl from the Yun family. She seems to have sensed that you've fallen in love with her. Mother worries too much, Li Mo replied coolly. Li Mo didn't quite understand what his mother meant when she said that he shouldn't fall in love with anyone. He didn't feel that there was any conflict between falling in love and revenge. Li Mo's indifference to women and his cold personality were purely due to his own personality. Once he met someone he truly loved, Li Mo's cold demeanor would be no less passionate than a mortal's. After her ordeal, Madame Xue's personality has indeed changed a great deal. The first elder sighed again. But Li Mo, have you ever thought about what you would do if that Yun girl really is related to the demonic dragons? Although Yun Ruoyan hadn't told them about her conversation with the demonic dragons, the first elder and Li Mo had long since realized that there must be some sort of relationship between her and the demonic dragons. But the two of them hadn't been able to determine what sort of relationship that was. So what if there's a relationship? Li Mo laughed. Father and mother were both able to break through the shackles of their species, so why can't I? That's exactly what Madame Xue was worried about. The first elder placed a hand on Li Mo's shoulder. Breaking through the established rules and breaking through the shackles of thousands of years comes with a heavy price. The Beast King and Empress Xue Tong were examples of this. The Beast King's kingdom had perished because of this foreign love. Only tens of thousands of beastkin were left of the original million, and many of them were forced to live homeless lives. Empress Xue Tong, on the other hand, had lost her physical body, and her spiritual sense was trapped. This was a painful price to pay. Master. Li Mo turned to the first elder. You saw my father and mother meet, understand, and fall in love with each other. Do you think they've ever regretted paying such a heavy price? I don't know. Perhaps only they know the answer to that question. Soon it was night. Yun Ruoyan had just taken off her clothes to take a bath when Li Mo suddenly appeared. Fortunately, Yun Ruoyan had closed the windows of the side room from the inside. Open the window. Li Mo knocked on the window. Enter from the door. As Yun Ruoyan took off her outer robe, she asked, instead of entering through the door, you prefer to leave through the window. Is this a family tradition? Li Mo had no choice but to ride his sword to the front of the room. With a light push he opened the door. You closed the window but didn't close it? Who are you guarding against? Li Mo was speechless. Li Mo entered the room and went straight to the side room. When he pushed the door open he was even more speechless. Yun Ruoyan had also closed the door from the inside. Find a place to sit for a while. I'll be ready soon. Yun Ruoyan's voice could be heard from the side room. Li Mo's large body circled around Yun Ruoyan's small room. Everything in the room seemed so small. The table, the stools, and even the bed. He couldn't help but frown. Shui Yun had always been very reliable, but this time he was truly dissatisfied. I'm ready. Yun Ruoyan finally pushed open the door to the side room and walked out, looking refreshed. After the shower, she was wearing a white undershirt, and her hair was wet and loose. Her face, without the fake birthmark, seemed to be emitting light at all times, making it hard for people to look away. Li Mo turned to look at Yun Ruoyan, who was just as small as her, standing at the door of the side room. Ah! Yun Ruoyan was caught off guard, and she hurriedly grabbed onto Li Mo's sleeve. Just as she was about to protest, Li Mo's lips sealed her protest. Yun Ruoyan was no longer as resistant to being intimate with Li Mo as she had been at the beginning, and she didn't want to play dead. Instead she was half shy, half pampered, and half unwilling. Li Mo couldn't bear to let go of Yun Ruoyan like this. Every time he had to exert a great deal of self-control to suppress his desire to possess her completely. When Li Mo finally let go of Yun Ruoyan, her face was flushed and Li Mo was panting heavily. Li Mo called out hoarsely, his chin resting on Yun Ruoyan's damp hair. Yes. Yun Ruoyan responded softly. When are you going to grow up? Li Mo sighed helplessly. Yun Ruoyan smiled. Actually, I'm already quite old, even older than you. Li Mo took it as a joke and raised his head to look at Yun Ruoyan in his arms. There was a faint red mark on the right side of Yun Ruoyan's face, caused by Rong Yueshan's ice blade. Seeing Li Mo's gaze darken, Yunruoyan hurriedly said, "It's all right, it's just a small wound." Caught off guard, Yunruoyan took another blow to her forehead. "I've never seen a woman who doesn't care about her face as much as you do," Li Mo asked. "Did the ointment I gave you work?" "Yes, yes, my dear slaughtering king." Seeing Li Mo's sour expression, Yunruoyan immediately began to act coquettishly. "All right." Yunruoyan suddenly remembered something important. She sat up from Li Mo's lap. "Did you meet with Master Tsang Song today?" "No, what?" Li Mo asked. Yunruoyan told Li Mo everything that had happened to the black-clad man. "Someone actually dared to steal the all-seeing mirror? Are they tired of living?" Li Mo laughed coldly. "I know how important this matter is, and since you and the first elder weren't around, I reported it to Master Tsang Song. But you don't seem to be too worried about it. The all-seeing mirror was one of Kongming Academy's most precious treasures." Yunruoyan felt that Li Mo should have reported it to the first elder as soon as he found out about it. As for Master Tsang Song, Li Mo had returned in the morning, but he hadn't reported the matter to him or the first elder. There's something you don't know." As Li Mo combed Yunruoyan's damp hair with his slender fingers, he explained slowly, "The all-seeing mirror is an ancient artifact, bestowed by the gods of the highest heavens. Not just anyone can steal it." Li Mo told Yunruoyan that the reason they weren't in a hurry was because the all-seeing mirror would form a heaven and earth formation. Not to mention the all-seeing mirror, any random activation of the spirit formation would result in heavenly punishment. Therefore, there was no need to set up any protective measures around the all-seeing mirror. Anyone who tried to steal from the all-seeing mirror would only be seeking death. Chapter 229. Li Mo told Yunruoyan that quite a few people had attempted to steal the all-seeing mirror in the past, but almost all of their attempts had ended in a horrible death. Yunruoyan calmed down, but she still had some questions in her mind. Since that black-robed man was able to sneak into Kongming Academy, he's definitely no ordinary person. Yunruoyan recalled that the man standing on the Crimson Sword aura had to be at least an 8th-rank Blade Master. Although it seemed like there was only a single rank between an 8th-rank Blade Master and a peak 7th-rank Blade Master, once one surpassed 5th rank, the gap between each rank was enormous. This was especially true between 7th and 8th rank. Once a Blade Master reached 8th rank, they would be able to cultivate their own flying swords, and only then would they be considered a true Blade Master. Previously, the ranks of a 1st rank, 2nd rank and 9th rank Blade Master were only the ranks that a cultivator's cultivation had reached. Only when a cultivator's cultivation had reached 8th rank and they had successfully forged their own immortal swords could they be considered a true Blade Master. There were many cultivators on the Xuanhuan continent who practiced Blade Master techniques, but not many were able to become true Blade Masters. The black-robed man standing on the Crimson Sword aura was clearly a powerful Blade Master. Not only is he a Blade Master, but he was also able to sneak into Kongming Academy so easily. It's clear that he's very familiar with the academy, and he might even have an accomplice, Yunruoyan continued. In that case, how could he not know that the all-seeing mirror is protected by a heaven and earth formation? And in order to reduce Li Furong's competition, the black-robed man even sent out a medicinal puppet to sabotage her entrance. This means that he had a plan in mind. Why would someone with such a high cultivation and plan commit such a suicidal act? Yunruoyan turned to Li Mo, waiting for his reply. Li Mo looked at Yunruoyan's serious expression and nodded in satisfaction. Your analysis makes sense. If there really is a traitor in Kongming Academy, I'll have to put in some effort to capture him. In the dead of night, in a secluded courtyard of the southern courtyard, Tsang Song anxiously waited. Not long after, there was movement outside the door. Tsang Song quickly walked over and opened the door. A black-robed man entered in a flash. "Why are you in such a hurry to find me?" the black-robed man asked as soon as he entered the room. "Let me ask you, did you go look for Li Furong last night?" Tsang Song asked, his tone reproachful. "What's wrong? Send me a signal and I'll go take a look." The black-robed man didn't understand. "You're being followed, do you know that? Li Mo's disciple, Yunruoyan, saw you flying on your sword, so she followed behind you and heard every word of your conversation with Li Furong." Only then did the black-robed man realize the severity of the situation. "No wonder I felt someone outside last night, but there was no movement when I checked. This Yunruoyan is quite good at concealing her aura, and even I was fooled. Fortunately, the first elder and Li Mo weren't present yesterday, and she reported the matter to me." Tsang Song sat down on a chair. I planned to use someone else to do my dirty work, but Li Mo stopped me from doing so. Now that Li Furong's been exposed, I have to change my plans. She can't be allowed to live. The black-robed man immediately objected to Tsang Song's words. That won't do. Li Furong's a master thief that I've been grooming for a long time. But now that she's been exposed, I can only delay this news for one more night. I'll have to report it tomorrow or I'll arouse suspicion. Once I do, the first elder will surely take action. If I don't silence her as soon as possible, I'm afraid that even you'll be implicated. Tsang Song was a little agitated. No, the black-robed man shook his head. She doesn't know of my hidden identity at Kongming Academy, so even if she's captured, she won't be able to expose me. Tsang Song snorted. You're just reluctant to let her go. She's just a tool that I've been using, and she's doomed to die even if she tries to steal the all-seeing mirror. Why would I be reluctant? The black-robed man said emotionlessly, I just need her to distract me and distract the chief elder. Otherwise, I won't be able to sneak into the bottom of the southern tower to steal the divine dragon art of war. The black-robed man turned to Tsang Song, his eyes burning with passion. You know that the far-sighted king has been preparing for more than a decade to unify the Xuanhuan continent, and all that's left is this manual. I have to get it for the far-sighted king and help him accomplish his goal. Tsang Song could only sigh when the black-robed man refused to listen. Then what do you plan to do? Li Furong thinks that I'm after the all-seeing mirror, and so does Yunruoyan. Tell them exactly what Yunruoyan said, and that'll confuse them even more. The black-robed man quickly came up with a plan, then explained his plan to Tsang Song. Both the old man and Li Mo think they're clever, and they won't be in a hurry to capture Li Furong. Instead they'll wait for her to die. As for me, I'll follow my original plan and steal the manual in one fell swoop. Tsang Song thought for a moment before deciding that the black-robed man's plan was plausible. In that case you'd better act as soon as possible. The black-robed man nodded, then chuckled. Don't worry, the day the far-sighted king unifies the Xuanhuan continent will be the day you'll be promoted to the first elder. After the black-robed man left, Tsang Song tossed and turned on his bed, unable to fall asleep. Many years ago, Tsang Song had met the far-sighted king by chance, and the two of them had discovered that the far-sighted king was just like him. A man who had been trampled underfoot by others, unable to rise to the top. At the same time, both of them appeared calm and uninterested in fame and fortune. But in reality, both of them were extremely greedy for power. However, Tsang Song's cultivation had stagnated, and he didn't even have the right to become an elder. As for the far-sighted king, his mother's status was inferior to Li Xiu's mother's, so even his eldest son didn't have the right to inherit the throne. When these two depressed and hopeless people met, they really regretted not meeting each other earlier. Even after their separation they continued to exchange letters. 3 years ago the far-sighted king had invited Tsang Song to his residence, then informed him of his plans for a rebellion and urged him to join him. Tsang Song was a member of Kongming Academy, which had never interfered with worldly affairs. Tsang Song had initially refused, but the far-sighted king had made a condition that he couldn't refuse. The far-sighted king said that he didn't want to rebel against just one clan, but the entire Xuanhuan continent. He wanted to unify the Xuanhuan continent and become the greatest emperor of all time. The far-sighted king's ambition had shocked Tsang Song. The far-sighted king had also said that the reason Kongming Academy was able to rise above the Four Kingdoms was because the Four Kingdoms were trying to curry favor with Kongming Academy. If he were to unite the Four Kingdoms and become the sole ruler of the Xuanhuan continent, his first priority would be to seize control of Kongming Academy. And Tsang Song was his choice for the position of First Elder. Tsang Song had been deeply shaken by the far-sighted king's grand plan, and also moved by the position of First Elder that he had been promised. As a result, Tsang Song had become one of the far-sighted king's spies in Kongming Academy. More than a year ago, the far-sighted king had somehow learned that the Southern Tower's treasury contained a peerless tome called the Art of the Divine Dragon. The far-sighted king had claimed that as long as he could obtain this tome, he would be invincible and invincible. However, the Southern Tower was where the First Elder cultivated, and the First Elder hadn't left Kongming Academy for many years. Unless it was necessary, the First Elder wouldn't leave the Southern Tower at all. A year ago, the far-sighted king had sent the black-robed man to help Tsang Song steal the tome, but he hadn't had an opportunity to do so. Eventually, the black-robed man remembered that he had a female disciple who was adept at stealing, Li Furong. If he could use her as bait to lure the First Elder away, the black-robed man would be able to steal the tome. As a result, the far-sighted king and Song Song found a way to get her into Kongming Academy. Everything had been going according to plan, but Yun Ruoyan had suddenly appeared out of nowhere. This made Song Song very uneasy. The black-robed man left Song Song's courtyard and went straight to Li Furong's room. Li Furong was already asleep, and the black-robed man opened the back window and entered. "Who's there?" Li Furong jumped up from her bed in shock. "It's me." The black-robed man lowered his voice. "Master, why are you here? I didn't send you a signal." Li Furong let down her guard when she saw the black-robed man. She yawned sleepily. "Darling, I missed you, so I came to see you. Aren't you happy?" The black-robed man chuckled as he sat down on her bed. Although the two of them were master and disciple in name, their relationship was somewhat ambiguous. Although they hadn't done anything out of line, there was still quite a bit of obscenity between them. Li Furong was a little surprised by the black-robed man's sudden change in demeanor. "Master, why are you coaxing me like this today? Is there something you want me to do?" Seeing that his intentions had been guessed, the black-robed man revealed his intentions. "Yes, the plan has been brought forward." The black-robed man leaned in and whispered in Li Furong's ear. "Really?" Li Furong's face lit up. "Of course. After you succeed, I'll definitely recommend you to the far-sighted king. Given your looks, the far-sighted king will surely like you, and you'll be able to enjoy endless riches and glory." Li Furong naturally didn't know that she was merely an abandoned pawn. Like an ignorant pig, she looked forward to a bright future. Inside the small cottage by the cliff, Liemo was demonstrating a fire-attuned external spiritual technique to her. He raised a hand and spiritual energy flowed out of his palm, transforming into a red fireball. This is the fireball technique, a low-level external technique. Liemo controlled the fireball in his hand as he explained, "This fire-attuned technique is specifically designed to counter Rong Yueshan's ice daggers." Liemo had long known that fire-attuned techniques were suitable for her, but he had always wanted her to focus more on internal techniques, so he hadn't taught her. However, after witnessing the situation today, Liemo felt that it was necessary to train her in external techniques. Chapter 230. I can do that. As Yun Ruoyan spoke, she stretched out her hand and gathered the spiritual energy in her spiritual vortex into her right hand. Suddenly, a line of fire shot out from her palm and it was green in color. Its sudden appearance was very frightening. "What do you think?" Yun Ruoyan asked proudly. She had once taught Wang Meng's attendants a lesson with her pill-making fire. Today, when she saw Li Mo's fireball, she felt that it was quite similar, and she couldn't help but try it out in front of him. You're amazing." Li Mo smiled. Pill masters generally use fire-attuned spiritual energy. Although your spiritual fire isn't fully formed, it'll still have some effect on most people. However, it won't work on someone like Rong Yueshan, who's also trained in external techniques. Liemo then imparted the fireball technique to Yun Ruoyan, as well as analyzed the differences between the spiritual fire used in pill making and the spiritual fire used in physical cultivation. When refining pills, you have to convert the fire-attuned spiritual energy in your spiritual vortex into spiritual fire, and then release it continuously. However, when using the fireball technique, you don't release it. Instead, you have to gather it in your palm like this, Liemo explained as he demonstrated to Yun Ruoyan. As Liemo explained, he demonstrated to Yun Ruoyan how to do it. The fireball in his palm fluctuated in size as it spun incessantly. The fireball technique is all about control over spiritual fire. Liemo threw the ball of spiritual fire out of the window. Yun Ruoyan watched as the fireball dissipated upon contact with the sea of clouds. Then tiny flames began to spread across the sea of clouds, as if setting them on fire. Amazing! Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but stare in shock. The fireball technique is only a low-tier fire-attuned spiritual technique. You'll be able to do it if you practice hard. Yes, I'll definitely practice hard. Yun Ruoyan and Liemo looked at the sea of flames outside the window, their eyes lit up by the flames. In the following days, Yun Ruoyan went to the Southern College with her classmates as usual, and at night she would practice the fireball technique in her small room, as well as her control over spiritual fire. After a period of practice, Yun Ruoyan had mastered the fireball technique, and her control over the spiritual fire and fire elemental spiritual energy was much better than before. Rather than attending classes at the academy, Yun Ruoyan preferred to have Limeau's tutelage and practice on her own. However, she was a student of the South Campus after all. If she didn't attend classes on time, it would be difficult for her to advance. The first elder had strict requirements for the Southern College. Unlike the sixth elder, he wouldn't casually raise a student's rank, and even Liemo couldn't help her cheat. Liemo told Yunruoyan that if she didn't reach the blue rank, she wouldn't be able to enter any of the three institutions. Moreover, after entering the three institutions, a rank would be of great help to one's cultivation, so it was necessary for her to attend classes. As a result, Yunruoyan had no choice but to obediently attend her boring classes at the academy every day. Kongming Academy had 3 halls and 5 schools: the Sword Hall, Pill-making Hall, and Forging Hall. Before entering the 3 halls, the students had to learn all the courses in the 5 academies. This included the most basic sword control lesson, as well as the mysterious medicine refinement lesson and weapon forging lesson. Each of these 3 courses had its own instructors to guide the new batch of students. Because the students weren't of the same level, the instructors had to start with the most basic of theories. Yunruoyan had a solid foundation in both the Blade Master and Pill-making courses, so she found these 2 classes rather tedious and unbearable. Only the forging class, which she wasn't familiar with, piqued her interest. However, there was one point that Yunruoyan found strange. The Xuanhuan continent clearly had 4 professions: Blade Master, Pill Master, Forge Master, and Summoner. Why was it that Kongming Academy had the sword, forging, and pill-making halls, but the beast-taming hall was missing? Of all the courses, only beast-taming was missing? As a result, Yunruoyan found an opportunity to ask some of the older students, and finally found out the reason. As it turned out, 3 years ago, something that had shaken Kongming Academy to the core had happened. Over the years, Kongming Academy had used the All-Eye Mirror to find quite a few unclaimed pockets in the alternate dimensions. Through the formation of teleportation arrays, these pockets had been established as training grounds for the Kongming Academy. These training grounds weren't very large, but because they hadn't been destroyed or overused by humans, they were generally rich in magical beasts and spiritual herbs. Just 3 years ago, the elders had discovered a new pocket through the all-seeing mirror, and discovered that this pocket contained a large number of low-rank, mid-rank, and high-rank beasts. Although these beasts weren't very high-rank, many of them were very valuable, especially those whose cores had medicinal value and could be used to refine pills. They were valuable, but they weren't high-rank or powerful. It was as if the heavens had sent them treasures. As a result, the steward of the beast-taming hall had requested that the instructors and a group of outstanding students be brought into this pocket dimension. Not only would they be able to train the students' beast-taming abilities, but they would also be able to obtain a large number of beast cores. After some discussion, the elders agreed to the steward's request. However, as soon as the students entered the pocket dimension, the connection between the pocket dimension and the academy was suddenly severed, and even the all-seeing mirror couldn't find any traces of them. Just like that, the steward, instructors, and a large number of students of the beast-taming hall had disappeared into the void. As a result, Kongming Academy had temporarily suspended the course and closed the Beastmaster Hall for the time being. In that case, Kongming Academy should have 4 halls and 5 courtyards instead of 3? Yunruoyan asked a rather beautiful senior. Yes, 3 years ago there were 4 halls and 5 courtyards, but now there are only 3 halls and 5 courtyards. Will Kongming Academy never reopen its beast-taming hall? Yunruoyan sighed. If Kongming Academy really doesn't reopen its beast-taming hall, then how many beast-taming masters and even more powerful summoners will be buried on the Xuanhuan continent? Yunruoyan's brother Yun Maxiao was a talented beast-taming master, and was likely to become a summoner in the future. As a result, Yunruoyan couldn't help but be grateful that her brother hadn't entered Kongming Academy at the time. Re-establishing a beast-taming hall is a rather complicated matter, another senior, Zongyang, commented. Apart from the lack of suitable candidates, another reason for not re-establishing a beast-taming hall was that the missing steward had been highly respected by everyone in Kongming Academy. This was especially so for those instructors who did not follow the deacon into the trial grounds. They made a request to the Elders Guild that they had to wait until the deacon and the missing instructors and students were found before they could reopen the beast-taming hall. Regardless of whether they were dead or alive, they wanted to see him, dead or alive. However, that small pocket dimension was like a grain of sand in the middle of a vast ocean, and it was no easy feat to relocate it. Yunruoyan couldn't help but sigh when she heard this. It seemed that the steward had truly been a well-loved man, or else the academy wouldn't have closed the beast-taming hall to commemorate him. One day the morning classes finally ended, and the students all headed to the academy's dining hall for lunch. Because of what had happened in the plaza, everyone knew of Yunruoyan's relationship with Liemo. As a result, the students of the Southern College, regardless of whether they were a single rank higher than Yun Ruoyan or several ranks higher than her, were all very polite to Yun Ruoyan. Yun Ruoyan brought the Lin sisters to the dining hall, where the seniors of the Southern College enthusiastically gave them directions and introduced them to the delicacies of the delicacies. While Yun Ruoyan felt the warmth of her seniors, she also felt quite a few envious, jealous and hateful gazes. However, because of their fear of Li Mo, they didn't dare act rashly, and only occasionally shot glances at Yun Ruoyan from afar. Naturally, Yun Ruoyan didn't pay much attention to them. Instead, she focused on those who were friendly to her. During this period of time, Yun Ruoyan and the Lin sisters had made quite a few friends. Among them, the beautiful senior sister was called Guanruliu. Her rank had already reached Xian, and she would be able to enter the 3 halls next spring. Apart from a few seniors, there were also a few freshmen from Yun Ruoyan's cohort, all of whom had been paying close attention to her performance. In addition to having Li Mo as her backer, they felt that Yun Ruoyan was also very strong. As a result, many of them began to view her as their leader, wanting to submit to her. There would be many trials and tribulations awaiting her at Kongming Academy in the future, so it was important for her to establish her own circle of friends. As a result, Yun Ruoyan, who didn't like to meddle in other people's business, tacitly allowed the new students to attach themselves to her. What are the 3 halls like? Are they the same as the 5 academies? Lin Qingxue asked Guanruliu, who was sitting opposite her. No. Guanruliu swallowed the food in her mouth and wiped the corner of her mouth with a handkerchief. She said softly, once you enter the 3 halls, you won't need to attend classes on time like this every day. As long as you complete the tasks assigned by the instructors, you can spend the rest of your time freely. Not only that, Zongyang continued. Once you enter the 3 halls, you'll be able to form your own teams and enter the trials to hunt beasts and search for spiritual herbs and herbs. Of course, you'll have to report this to your teacher, who will then apply to the Council of Elders. Once the application is approved, you'll be able to activate the transportation array and enter the designated trial. Zongyang had been at Kongming Academy for a long time, but because his rank was too low, he hadn't been able to enter the 3 halls. From her seniors, Yun Ruoyan had learned that the trials were also divided by rank. The higher the rank, the greater the risk, but the more treasures there would be. On the other hand, the lower the rank, the lower the risk and the fewer treasures there would be. Students from the 3 halls could apply to enter the higher rank trials for training and treasure hunting. From time to time, the 5 academies would also organize students to enter the trials, but the trials they entered were usually of a lower rank. Chapter 231. In that case, was the trial we entered before the transfer to the college a high-level one or a low-level one? One of the new students asked, glancing at Yun Ruoyan as he did so. Yun Ruoyan understood what he was thinking. According to the analysis of the seniors, they, as newbies, should have entered the lowest-level trial. But in reality, there were quite a few mid-rank and even high-rank magical beasts in that trial. What was even more incredible was that Yun Ruoyan had obtained a sage-rank spiritual herb, the amaranthan sun. This didn't match up with the low-rank magical beasts and scant treasures they had heard about. The trial we entered before the transfer to the college was indeed the lowest-level trial, Zongyang replied. Didn't you notice that the magical beasts there almost never attacked you first? Yun Ruoyan and the other new students thought back to his words. Indeed, no magical beast had ever attacked them first. It was only when they were hunting the beasts or when they were trying to obtain the spiritual herb that the beasts were guarding, that the beasts would attack them. Otherwise, as long as they pretended to be weak, the beasts wouldn't attack them. As for the sage-grade spiritual herb you obtained, we don't know how to explain it either. Zongyang smiled at Yun Ruoyan. Perhaps you're just too lucky. Over the past few days, the older students had all learned that Yun Ruoyan had obtained the amaranthan sun. The envious and jealous gazes directed at Yun Ruoyan were not only because she had been accepted as Li Mo's disciple, but also because of the amaranthan sun. Many were unconvinced that Yun Ruoyan, a newbie, had been accepted as Master Mo's disciple as soon as she entered the college. And how could she be so lucky as to obtain a sage-rank spiritual herb? Was she worthy? As the saying went, an innocent man would get into trouble because of his wealth. Just because Yun Ruoyan was in possession of the amaranthan sun, some people began to hate her for no apparent reason. However, Kongming Academy had a special rule. All treasures obtained in the trial belonged to the individual. Furthermore, Yun Ruoyan had Li Mo as her backer, so even if others weren't convinced, they wouldn't dare try to snatch it from her. Sister Ruoyan, look. Lin Qingxue tugged on Yun Ruoyan's arm and motioned for her to look at the entrance of the cafeteria. A group of people walked into the dining hall, including Rong Yueshan, Yi Qianying, Pei Zio, Li Furong, Zhao Gang and Zhao Su. This group of people has already gathered together. There's definitely nothing good going on. Lin Qingxue muttered softly, they're really a nest of snakes and rats. Guan Ruliu took note of Lin Qingxue's expression and words. By this time she had already finished eating and was quietly waiting for them. Do you have a grudge against them? Guan Ruliu asked. She hadn't been at the plaza the day before, so she didn't know the specifics. Only later did she learn of Li Mo's relationship with Yun Ruoyan. It's not just a grudge, it's a death grudge. In the trial grounds, Rong Yueshan had instigated others to kidnap her and her sister, and then tried to kill them. In Lin Qingxue's eyes, she and Rong Yueshan had already become mortal enemies. You have to be careful of that person. Zhong Yang pointed his chopsticks at one of the people in Rong Yueshan's group. That's the head of the Northern College, Guan Tianyu. He just came out of the high-rank trial yesterday. Everyone's gaze followed Zhong Yang's chopsticks. In front of Rong Yueshan was a tall, muscular youth, the Guan Tianyu that Zhong Yang had spoken of. Zhong Yang had said that only students who had entered the three institutions were qualified to enter the high-rank trial grounds, but this Guan Tianyu was the second elder's grandnephew, and he was doted on by the second elder. It was because of this relationship that he was able to enter the high-rank trial grounds with the students of the three institutions. He's a vicious man, and because of his relationship with the second elder, there's no one in the 5 colleges that he doesn't dare to bully. Guan Ruliu sat with her back to Guan Tianyu's group, and she didn't turn around to look at them. As if sensing Yun Ruoyan's group's gaze, Guan Tianyu turned toward them with a sinister glare. When Zhong Yang saw Guan Tianyu's gaze, he subconsciously lowered his head. The other students who were sitting close to Yun Ruoyan's group also seemed to be intimidated by Guan Tianyu's gaze, and they all lowered their heads. Yun Ruoyan only glanced at Guan Tianyu indifferently before turning back to the food in front of her. Guan Tianyu was satisfied with the deterrent effect of his glare, and a smug smile appeared on his lips. But very quickly the smile on his face froze. Yun Ruoyan had suddenly raised her head and met his gaze without restraint. As Yun Ruoyan and Guan Tianyu stared at each other, the noisy crowd seemed to quiet down, and the atmosphere became heavy. Lin Qingxue had a fearless temperament, and she had initially lowered her head at Lin Qingxin's urging. However, when Yun Ruoyan met Guan Tianyu's gaze, she also raised her head and glared at Guan Tianyu, her eyes full of disdain and disgust. Guan Tianyu couldn't help but be puzzled by Yun Ruoyan and Lin Qingxue's fearless and indifferent gazes. Who were these two girls? How could they be so daring? It had been many years since anyone in the 5 academies had dared to look down on him and look down on him. Who are those people? Why do they look so unfamiliar? Guan Tianyu asked Rong Yueshan. Rong Yueshan was the second elder's new disciple, and she held a high position in the Northern College. Moreover, her uncle Rong Tianhai was an instructor of the Northern College, so she was qualified to walk with Guan Tianyu. Rong Yueshan was also a perceptive person, and she treated Guan Tianyu with the respect that a junior should show a senior. As a result, the two of them naturally became birds of a feather. The one with the birthmark is Master Mo's disciple Yun Ruoyan. The round-faced one is her cousin Lin Qingxue. And the one eating with her head lowered is also Yun Ruoyan's cousin Lin Qingqin, Rong Yueshan replied. She's Master Mo's new disciple Yun Ruoyan? Guan Tianyu exclaimed in surprise. Why is she so ugly? Yun Ruoyan's mask had been cut open by Rong Yueshan's ice blade in the plaza the previous day, revealing her fake scar. Later on, when others looked at her, they became curious. They would always look at her face with strange eyes, as if they wanted to see through the veil on her face and see her true face. Yun Ruoyan didn't like this, so she decided not to wear a veil in the future. She had come to Kongming Academy to cultivate, not to participate in a beauty pageant. If she were to openly show her ugly face to everyone, she might even be able to make friends who were willing to be friends with her. Li Mo expressed his approval of Yun Ruoyan's decision. After all, she looked far too beautiful and conspicuous without a veil. On the other hand, her ugly appearance reassured Li Mo quite a bit. Senior, not only is she ugly, but her heart is just as ugly as her appearance, Yi Qianying commented. I can see that. Guan Tianyu narrowed his eyes. How dare they ignore my disciple? I'm going to take them on. Senior, Yun Ruoyan is Master Mo's disciple. It's best if you don't provoke her, Rong Yueshan interjected. That's right. Yesterday Miss Rong, young Master Zhao, and Miss Zhao got into a fight with Yun Ruoyan in the plaza. Yun Ruoyan relied on Master Mo's authority to take Miss Zhao's pearl for herself, and she even forced young Master Zhao to kowtow to her and admit his wrongdoings. Something like that happened? Guan Tianyu frowned. The Southern College had the first elder, and although it was clearly superior to the Northern College, the students of the Southern College were strictly required to keep a low profile. However, because of the second elder's competitive personality, his students were used to being arrogant and domineering. He actually kowtowed to her. Guan Tianyu looked toward Zhao Chang and Zhao Su. Both of them had ugly expressions on their faces, but they didn't say anything. The Zhao siblings weren't from the Northern College, but they were close friends with the Northern College. Naturally, Guan Tianyu had to act like a big brother, treating Zhao Chang as his own lackey. In that case, I'll have to take her on in Zhao Chang's stead. Guan Tianyu snorted as he walked toward Yun Ruoyan. Rong Yueshan and Yi Qianying glanced at each other, their eyes gleaming with satisfaction. They might be afraid of Liu Mo, but someone else wasn't. Guan Tianyu's walking over. Zhong Yang said nervously. The other students were just as nervous as he was, all of them burying their heads in their bowls of rice. Guan Tianyu walked up to Yun Ruoyan's table, but his gaze turned to Zhong Yang. Zhong Yang seemed like an amiable, easygoing person, but in Guan Tianyu's eyes, he was the easiest to bully. Zhong Yang had been bullied more than once by the Northern College's students. Junior brother Zhong, how was your appetite today? Guan Tianyu asked with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Not bad, not bad. Zhong Yang hurriedly stood up and replied with a chuckle. Why do I feel like these meatballs are raw? Guan Tianyu frowned. Zhong Yang didn't know what he meant. How could that be? They're not raw, not raw. Is that so? Guan Tianyu took the chopsticks from Zhong Yang's hand, stuck them into Lin Qingqian's plate and picked up a meatball. When the meatball was picked up by Guan Tianyu, it quickly turned cold and a thin layer of ice formed on its surface. As the crowd watched, Guan Tianyu handed the meatball to Zhong Yang. This must be raw, or why isn't this junior sister eating it? But since you said it's not raw, why don't you eat it? Chapter 232. Guan Tianyu was clearly bullying Zhong Yang, but his gaze would occasionally drift toward Yun Ruoyan. In the end, Guan Tianyu was still wary of Liu Mo. He hadn't directly attacked Yun Ruoyan, but he could bully those close to Yun Ruoyan, such as Zhong Yang. The people around them immediately understood Guan Tianyu's true intentions, and they quickly carried their dishes away from Yun Ruoyan's table to avoid being caught in the crossfire. Zhong Yang actually wanted to leave as well. He had been bullied so much that he was afraid of Yun Ruoyan, and he would usually avoid the Demon King whenever he saw him. But it was too late now. Guan Tianyu had already set his sights on him. Guan Ruliu, on the other hand, remained unmoving. She was a rather senior student in the academy, so she didn't fear Guan Tianyu as much as the others, but she wouldn't provoke him easily either. Senior brother, I'm already full. Zhong Yang refused unwillingly. It was already winter, and eating a frozen meatball wasn't a comfortable thing to do. So you're saying that you won't eat it? Guan Tianyu's smile was still sinister as he turned to Lin Qingqian. Lin Qingqian was a vegetarian, and all that was left on her plate was meat. Guan Tianyu put on a disgusted expression. I can't stand people wasting food. If you're not going to eat it, then you, junior sister, have it. Guan Tianyu placed the meatball in front of Lin Qingqian. Lin Qingxue couldn't sit still any longer. She slammed the chopsticks in her hand on the table and tried to stand up, but Yun Ruoyan pressed her down and stood up herself. Yun Ruoyan was so small that she only reached Guan Tianyu's shoulder, and her aura was far inferior to his. However, Yun Ruoyan didn't show the slightest fear toward Guan Tianyu. Instead, her eyes were full of disdain. Yun Ruoyan's disdain infuriated Guan Tianyu, and the malice in his eyes grew stronger and stronger. From an outsider's point of view, the two of them were about to start a fight. Those who didn't like Yun Ruoyan mocked her for overestimating herself, for even daring to provoke the Northern College's tyrant. Even those who had a favorable impression of Yun Ruoyan were worried for her. Everyone was certain that as long as the two of them fought, Yun Ruoyan would be crushed. I'll eat. Just as the atmosphere became more and more tense, Zhong Yang said, I also don't like wasting food. I'll eat it. Zhong Yang took the meatball from Guan Tianyu's hands, frowned, and popped it into his mouth. Senior brother Zhong Yang, wait. Yun Ruoyan suddenly reached out to stop Zhong Yang. She used 2 fingers to grab the chopsticks in Zhong Yang's hand. These meatballs are cold, so let me warm them up for you. As Yun Ruoyan spoke, Zhong Yang felt a wave of heat travel from Yun Ruoyan's fingers to the chopsticks in his hand, and then to the meatballs stuck in the chopsticks. Soon, the layer of ice on the surface of the frozen meatball melted, and then it became hot again from the cold to the hot. That's enough, senior brother. Xuanhuan let go of her chopsticks. Thank you, junior sister. Xuanhuan looked at the changes in the meatball in his hand in shock. Then, his eyes lit up with joy and he stuffed the meatball into his mouth. Yes, it's not raw at all, Xuanhuan murmured as he ate. Not only is it not raw, it tastes really good. Xuanhuan finished the meatball in front of everyone's eyes, wiping his mouth as if he hadn't had enough yet. Xuantianyu had seen Xuanhuan's actions just now, and he was quite shocked. He hadn't expected that a rookie like Xuanhuan would be able to control spiritual energy as precisely as he was, and he even wondered if his eyes were playing tricks on him. Senior brother Guan, is this enough? Xuanhuan looked at Xuantianyu with a cold smile, her eyes cold. Xuantianyu's original plan to cause trouble had been foiled by Xuanhuan, and he was quite displeased. There was nothing in Kongming Academy that he couldn't provoke. You're not bad, but you're so ugly that it hurts my eyes. Xuantianyu purposely stared at Xuanhuan's birthmark with a disgusted expression. I heard that you, Rong Yueshan, and Yi Qianying are all daughters of noble families. How come they're so pretty while you're so ugly? It's one thing for you to be ugly, but you're even trying to pollute the eyes of others. How could Kongming Academy allow someone as ugly as you to enter? I don't know what Master Mo saw in you either, for him to accept an ugly monster like you as his disciple. Xuanhuan hadn't expected that Xuantianyu, despite his burly physique and manly appearance, would have a mouth even more venomous than that of a girl's. Don't you have any manners? Lin Qingxue couldn't help but stand up and yell at Xuantianyu. This time even Lin Qingxuan's expression changed. Even though they knew that Xuanhuan was only pretending to be ugly, they still couldn't stand Xuantianyu's insults. What's the matter? I'm just speaking the truth. Can't I even speak the truth? Xuantianyu looked like a ruffian, a wicked grin on his face as he shouted, What can you do to me? You bitten me, you hateful face. That's right. You're so ugly yet you don't want to tell us. Then don't come out and scare people, Li Furong added. Rong Yueshan and Yi Qianying also looked at Xuantianyu mockingly. Ha! Xuanhuan laughed carelessly. Senior brother Guan, Kongming Academy accepts students based on their abilities, not their looks. I've come to Kongming Academy to study and cultivate, not to be a beauty pageant candidate. If you want to look at beauties, there's no shortage of brothels around you. Xuanhuan smiled at Rong Yueshan and the others. I can tell you honestly that they're no worse than brothels. Xuanhuan's words caused Rong Yueshan and the others' expressions to change. What do you mean? Li Furong roared. How dare you compare us to brothels? Am I? Xuanhuan pretended to be confused. Miss Li, you're overthinking things. I'm just giving you an example. That's right. Lin Qingxue laughed. The prostitutes in our 100 Flowers brothel are famous for their beauty. Just based on looks, I don't think you guys can compare to them. That makes sense, senior brother Guan, Lin Qingxuan added coldly. If you really want to look at beauties, why don't you go there? Xuanhuan couldn't help but burst out laughing. He immediately covered his mouth with his hand, but he couldn't stop his body from trembling. In his mind, Xuanhuan had always been the cold-blooded type. Who would have thought that even Xuantianyu wouldn't be her match when it came to her venomous tongue? And her two younger sisters were usually quite obedient, but when they got into a fight, they were always the best of the best. Even Xuantianyu, who had always prided himself on his eloquence, was rendered speechless. Xuanhuan, how dare you? Rong Yueshan's face was bright red, and it seemed that she had truly been angered. I'm the daughter of the emperor's uncle, and Yi Qianying is the crown prince's concubine. Rong Yueshan hadn't succeeded in teaching Xuanhuan a lesson in the plaza, and she hadn't dared to do so because of Li Mo. However, her desire to teach Xuanhuan a lesson had never lessened. In fact, it had only grown stronger. She had intended to use Xuantianyu to teach Xuanhuan a lesson today, but she hadn't expected that even the Demon King wouldn't be a match for Xuanhuan. Fortunately, she now had a good reason to teach Xuanhuan a lesson. If she didn't teach Xuanhuan a lesson after hearing such insults, her master, the second elder, would probably never forgive her. If I don't teach you a lesson today, I'm not worthy of my surname. Rong Yueshan shouted. She waved her hand at Xuanhuan, and two icicles shot toward Xuanhuan's group. Be careful. Xuanhuan grabbed Lin Qingxue, and Guan Ruliu pulled Lin Qingxuan away. Xuanhuan grabbed a plate from the table and threw it in the direction of the icicles. The icicles hit the plate with a shattering sound, and all the juice and soup in the dish spilled out. Rong Yueshan and the others reacted quickly and dodged, but Li Furong was splattered all over her face. Lin Qingxue looked at Li Furong, but before she could laugh, Rong Yueshan shot out another 2 icicles. This time, however, Yun Ruoyan didn't dodge. Instead, she raised her right hand and a fireball appeared in her palm. Before the icicle could reach her, Yun Ruoyan hurled the fireball out. When the fireball met the icicles in midair, it exploded like a blossoming flower, enveloping the icicles within. In an instant, the icicles melted in the fire and disappeared. Fireball technique. Guan Tianyu exclaimed. I didn't expect this ugly girl to be so skilled. Things are getting interesting. Rong Yueshan was shocked to see that Yun Ruoyan, who she hadn't been able to deal with just a few days ago, had so easily neutralized her icicle technique. You've learned a physical technique as well? Ha, you're not the only one, master. Yun Ruoyan raised her right hand again, and another fireball appeared in her palm. Didn't you want to fight me? In that case I'll fulfill your wish. Yun Ruoyan threw the fireball at Rong Yueshan. Just as Li Mo had said, the fireball technique was specifically designed to deal with icicles. The fireball could melt the icicles, but the icicles couldn't stop the fireball. Rong Yueshan watched as the fireball got closer and closer. She could finally feel the impending danger. Just as Rong Yueshan was panicking, Guan Tianyu finally made his move. Chapter 233. Guan Tianyu shot out a row of ice blades at Yun Ruoyan's fireball. Although they were both low-level ice blades, Guan Tianyu's ice blades were far larger and more numerous than Rong Yueshan's. The row of 5 or 6 ice blades instantly shot into the fireball. They were quickly melted by the fireball's temperature, but they did not disappear. Instead, they melted into water and extinguished the fireball. When Yun Ruoyan saw Guan Tianyu's move, she couldn't help but look at him in a new light. The reason he could be so domineering wasn't just because of his status as the second elder, but also because of his own strength. Young master, I'm hungry. Guan Tianyu clapped his hands and broke the stalemate. Let's not play around today, let's eat first. He glanced at Yun Ruoyan with interest before walking off to the other side of the cafeteria. Rong Yueshan glared viciously at Yun Ruoyan before following Guan Tianyu away. Both Yi Qianying and Pei Zio looked at Yun Ruoyan with surprise. The Zhao siblings also had a pensive look on their faces. Are we going to let it go just like that? Li Furong's face was covered in soup as she cried out in exasperation, but no one paid any attention to her. She stomped her feet and ran out of the cafeteria, most likely heading back to the courtyard to freshen up. Yun Ruoyan, I didn't expect you to be so strong. Zongyang looked Yun Ruoyan up and down as if this was the first time he'd met her. Sister Ruoyan, you're really amazing. Lin Qingxue and Lin Qingchen were both smiling. That's right, Yun Ruoyan. What kind of technique was that to be able to unleash such a large fireball? Even Rong Yueshan wasn't your match. The few rookies who had initially wanted to rely on Yun Ruoyan, but had left out of fear of Guan Tianyu, now sat back down with their bowls, looking at Yun Ruoyan fawningly. Yun Ruoyan, oh no, Boss Yun, what kind of technique is that and where did you learn it? Can you tell us? Do you even need to ask? Lin Qingxue cast a sidelong glance at the newcomer and slowly replied, of course it was taught by Master Mo's sister. Ruoyan is a disciple that Master Mo accepted in front of everyone, and the techniques that Master Mo imparted to her are naturally confidential. How could he just casually reveal them to you? Lin Qingxue didn't like the cowardly behavior of these rookies, and her tone carried a hint of disdain. Yun Ruoyan could understand their behavior. After all, it was common for the weak to attach themselves to the strong, so it wasn't unusual. However, this also made her realize that even if she wanted to form a team, she had to have strict requirements for her team members. Among these requirements was the courage to face off against the strong. Otherwise, if they encountered a slightly stronger magical beast, they would just run away. What was the use of having him? She couldn't help but think of Zhuo Yifeng. He was one of the few people she had acknowledged, but because of Li Mo, he had drifted further and further away from them. Ever since he had left with the 6th elder at the plaza, Yun Ruoyan hadn't seen him again. Lin Qingxue, on the other hand, had gone to the central college to see Zhuo Yifeng. When she returned, she told Yun Ruoyan that Zhuo Yifeng was being personally taught by the 6th elder, and that he was extremely diligent in his cultivation. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but sigh. Hatred could bring out a person's greatest potential, and Zhuo Yifeng himself was a good candidate for cultivation. Coupled with his extraordinary diligence, it was only a matter of time before he grew stronger. However, given Li Mo's monstrous cultivation, Feng had no chance of defeating him at all. Ruoyan didn't even dare to imagine that the two of them would one day fight to the death. One was a friend she had gone through thick and thin with, and the other was her lover. She hoped that such a day would never come. Was it really the Slaughtering King who taught you this technique? Lin Qingqian's puzzled question interrupted Ruoyan's train of thought. That's right. Ruoyan nodded. Lin Qingqian frowned slightly. She didn't live far from Ruoyan, and they even had dinner together. Apart from when they were sleeping, the two of them were practically inseparable. When had the Slaughtering King taught her this new technique? It looks like I'll have to find some time to have a good chat with Sister Ruoyan, Lin Qingqian thought. Indeed, a master produces a brilliant disciple. Xuanhuan stood up from her seat. Are you all done eating? Let's head back to the Southern College to prepare for our afternoon classes. Ruoyan and the others followed Xuanhuan out of the cafeteria. On the way out, Ruoyan suddenly felt as if someone was staring at her from behind. Ruoyan subconsciously turned around. Sure enough, she saw a few familiar faces and more than one at that. Ruoyan glanced at them coolly before turning away and disappearing from the cafeteria. In an inconspicuous corner of the cafeteria, Wang Meng and Li Qianxiao sat facing each other. Brother Wang, I've noticed that you've been staring at Miss Yun. Have you taken a liking to her? Li Qianxiao smiled meaningfully. Your Highness, you must be joking. Wang Meng denied it, then asked with a smile, I saw that your Highness's gaze was also fixed on Miss Yun, and I found it strange. Your concubine is clearly the daughter of the Yi family, but you're staring at Miss Yun instead of her. What's the meaning of this? Li Qianxiao laughed dryly, then asked with a puzzled expression. I'm just curious as to why Miss Yun's birthmark seems to change. Sometimes it's bigger, sometimes it's smaller, sometimes it's darker, and sometimes it's lighter. Brother Wang, you're quite knowledgeable. Do you know why? Is that so? When Wang Meng had seen Ruoyan before, she had always been wearing a veil. Now that she had taken off her veil, he was shocked by the birthmark on her face. Wang Meng had seen how much Li Mo doted on Ruoyan, and he had even taken her in as his disciple. Did someone like Li Mo really not care about a woman's appearance? Wang Meng couldn't quite believe it. As the saying goes, a gentleman seeks a fair and graceful lady. Which man in this world doesn't love a beautiful lady? Even Li Mo was no exception. Combined with Li Qianxiao's question, Wang Meng's heart suddenly lit up. Could the scar on Ruoyan's face be fake? Wang Meng was also a pill master, and he knew that there were several herbs that could be mixed together to create a birthmark scar. The martial arts world often used this method to disguise themselves, and Ruoyan was most likely using it as well. Brother Wang, what's the matter? Why are you in a daze? Oh, nothing. Wang Meng took a sip of his soup, not intending to share his new discovery with Li Qianxiao. Why haven't I seen the fourth prince today? Wang Meng changed the topic. These past few days, he had often gone to Li Qianxiao's residence to play with his two brothers. Wang Meng hadn't been familiar with Li Qianxiao before, having only met him at a banquet hosted by Paying Xiong. However, with Wang Meng's deliberate effort to befriend him, they had quickly gotten to know each other. Yesterday he suddenly told me that he'd had enough fun on Kongming Mountain, so I had a senior send him off the mountain early this morning, Li Qianxiao replied. Oh, is that so? I was going to have a drink with him tonight, but it looks like I'll have to wait until later, Wang Meng replied half-truthfully. On the second floor of the tower, Shui Yun was reporting to Li Mo, Your Highness, I purposely tried to find an opportunity to approach Li Qianyue, and as expected, he asked me about the all-seeing mirror. Shui Yun glanced at Li Mo, a smile on his lips as he continued, Just as Your Highness said, Li Qianyue really doesn't know about the heavenly punishment. After I told him about this, he was so scared that his face turned ashen, and he left this morning with his tail between his legs. Li Mo nodded. Since that old man wanted someone to help him, he naturally wouldn't tell anyone about the heavenly punishment. Otherwise, who would risk the heavenly punishment to send a message to the divine dragon realm? I'd wanted to free that old man as soon as possible, but the situation has changed. It's best to keep his old bones around for a few more years. Both Li Mo's expression and tone were unusually sinister, and Shui Yun found him to be a stranger. In Shui Yun's eyes, although the Slaughtering King was usually cold and serious, he was actually very good to his subordinates and clansmen. He was a kind-hearted man, but whenever the Divine Dragon clan was mentioned, his entire body would brim with a murderous aura. Even Shui Yun, who had served Li Mo for a very long time, felt afraid. I had you keep an eye on that female student named Li Ferong. Did you find anything? Liemo reigned in his sinister aura. I was just about to report this to your highness, Xuanhuan replied. Xuanhuan replied, on the night your highness gave me the order, I waited outside Li Furong's room. In the middle of the night, a black-robed man entered Li Furong's room. This subordinate wanted to eavesdrop on the commotion inside the room, but the black-robed man's senses were unusually sharp, and he was able to release his psychic energy over a large area. Projecting one's mental energy was extremely taxing, and unless one's cultivation had reached a certain level, one wouldn't be able to do so for an extended period of time. Otherwise, one's mental energy wouldn't be able to bear the strain. That person was able to project his mental energy all the way until he left. I'm guessing that he's already a 9th-rank blade master, Xuanhuan replied. Alright, I understand. Did you find out where he went? I was incompetent. He was too fast and I didn't dare to follow him too closely for fear of alerting him. Xuanhuan bowed. That's understandable. You may leave. Liemo waved his hand, dismissing Xuanhuan. Liemo clasped his hands behind his back as he walked to the railing. His gaze swept past the Southern College, then the Western College, then the Northern and Eastern Colleges, and finally the Central College in the corner. He couldn't help but frown. The black-robed man Xuanhuan spoke of was undoubtedly the black-robed man on a crimson sword aura. As far as Liemo knew, the only person who was at least a 9th-rank blade master was the second elder. Chapter 234. But that was impossible. The black-robed man couldn't possibly be the second elder. Liemo analyzed the situation silently. Firstly, the second elder's cultivation had long since reached the peak of the Sword Saint realm, and he would have been able to detect Yunruoyan and Xuanhuan's presence. Secondly, although the second elder's temper was a little eccentric and domineering, he would never do anything to harm Kongming Academy. In that case, this black-robed man must have infiltrated Kongming Academy from outside, just like Li Furong. Li Furong had passed the student selection process, but this black-robed man was a male, and none of the male students fit the criteria. Instructors and administrators were even less likely, so the only other possibility was that they were handymen. In Kongming Academy, there were also handymen who did menial chores, such as cleaning the night incense or planting the vegetable garden. Since the students weren't willing to do the menial chores, the handymen would take over. Every handyman had a 3-year contract with Kongming Academy, and they could choose to leave after that, and the academy would recruit new students from outside the academy. Liemo's eyes glinted. It was highly likely that this black-robed man had infiltrated Kongming Academy through this channel, and that he was currently disguised as a handyman. In the cafeteria, all of the students had finished their meals, and the honorary disciples in charge of cleaning began to clean up. Most of the students had good dining habits, and they weren't usually very sloppy. However, because of Yunruoyan's group's conflict, they had put on a show in the cafeteria, resulting in quite a few dishes being smashed. Not only that, but the food and soup had spilled all over the floor and been trampled on by the students who had come in later. It was a disgusting sight to behold. Although the disciples in name weren't official students, they were all nobles. Usually they would sweep the floor and wipe the dust. Naturally, they wouldn't want to do such a disgusting job. The honorary disciples pushed each other around, none of them willing to do it. Just then, a hunchbacked old man walked into the cafeteria. The honorary disciples all recognized him as Mute Li, who was responsible for cleaning the night incense. Why don't we spend some money to get Mute Li to do it? One of the honorary disciples suggested. Everyone agreed. Although the floor was dirty, it was still much cleaner than the filth in the cafeteria. Hey Mute, a disciple called out to the old man. The old man didn't respond at all. Are you stupid? That old man is deaf and mute. Another registered disciple took a step forward, took out a small piece of silver and waved it in front of the Mute Li, then pointed to the ground and mouthed exaggeratedly, "Clean the ground for us, and this silver is yours." Originally, Mute Li wanted to pretend that he didn't understand, but these disciples seemed to be against him. They blocked his way and said that if he didn't clean up the ground, they wouldn't let him eat and so on. Mute Li suppressed the anger in his heart and squatted down to wipe the floor with a cloth handed over by a few unnamed disciples. While wiping the ground, he said fiercely in his heart, "Wait until I'm done, then I'll come and take your dog lives." Did you see the conflict in the dining hall today? Mute Li was wiping the floor and the other disciples had nothing to do, so they chatted on the side. I didn't see anything. I was helping out in the kitchen at the time. What happened? One of the disciples asked curiously. Therefore, the nominal disciple who had witnessed the whole incident told the whole story in detail. Let me tell you, the funniest thing was that senior sister Li. She was splashed with soup all over her face and she was still jumping around. No matter how pretty she is, she still looks like an idiot, haha. The disciple laughed as he spoke. He didn't remember the excitement of the battle, but he did remember Li Furong's embarrassing appearance clearly. Mute Li cursed inwardly as he wiped the floor. Li Furong had already told him to keep a low profile, so why did it seem like she was deliberately going against him? Was there something wrong with her brain? It seemed like he couldn't delay things any longer. That night, Mute Li, the black-robed man, entered Li Furong's room once more. Didn't I tell you to keep a low profile? Why did you embarrass yourself in the dining hall today? The black-robed man questioned Li Furong. My hand was injured by that ugly Yun girl, and I've been looking for an opportunity to teach her a lesson for a long time. And those Lin sisters by her side are all despicable. Li Furong replied indignantly. I just happened to be with Guan Chanyu and Rong Yueshan today. Rong Yueshan and Yun Ruoyan have a grudge against each other, and I only wanted to provoke them into a fight. I didn't expect that I wouldn't be able to get away with it. Humph! The black-robed man snorted. How foolish. Yun Ruoyan is Li Mo's disciple, and given Li Mo's strength, it's obvious that Yun Ruoyan isn't weak at all. She's definitely not as simple as she seems. The black-robed man had observed Yun Ruoyan from afar when he was disguised as Mute Li. Apart from the ugly birthmark on her face, she didn't seem to have anything special about her. However, because of Li Mo's presence, the black-robed man never dared to underestimate Yun Ruoyan. Remember the mission you've been assigned to Kongming Academy. Once you've completed it, you can have your revenge, the black-robed man instructed. Then when should I do it? I really don't want to stay here for another day. Li Furong looked expectantly at the black-robed man. I've been looking for an opportunity these past few days. In the darkness, the black-robed man's eyes shone like a beast's. Li Mo and the First Elder are both here, so this isn't a good time to strike. Once Li Mo leaves and the First Elder is alone, we'll strike. Li Furong wasn't the only one who didn't want to stay any longer. The black-robed man was even more desperate. Yixiang had been out for more than half a year and he was almost at his limit. It was all Tsang Song's fault for giving him such a good job. During this period of time, Mute Li had been observing Li Mo, ready to strike as soon as he left. What was strange, however, was that Li Mo, who had disappeared for more than a month in the past, was now staying at Kongming Academy, refusing to leave at all. Unable to do anything about it, the black-robed man wrote a letter to the far-sighted king, instructing him to find a way to transfer Li Mo away. As a result, Li Mo received a letter from the palace. The letter stated that the far-sighted king was coming to the capital to visit the emperor, and specifically requested to see Li Mo. The emperor Li Xiu urged Li Mo to return to the palace as soon as possible to reunite with his brother. Li Mo clutched the letter in his hand, his expression solemn. He had already found out that Mute Li was the black-robed man, and the only reason he hadn't taken any action yet was because he wanted to uncover the mastermind behind Mute Li's actions. Li Mo had sent someone to intercept Mute Li's letter to the far-sighted king, so he naturally knew the contents of the letter. Then he had sent a secret guard to trace the letter back to the far-sighted king. At first he didn't dare believe it. The far-sighted king, Li Sheng, was his elder brother in name, and Li Mo's impression of him had always been that of a loyal and unambitious prince. But soon after, Li Mo received a letter from the palace. Li Mo had no choice but to believe that Mute Li's mastermind was none other than the far-sighted king. Wasn't the explanation of these few paragraphs a little sloppy and simple? With just a few words, the far-sighted king's true identity was revealed to the male lead. In terms of the plot, the writing was a little too childish. There was no sense of urgency or contradiction. That night, Li Mo and Yun Ruoyan sat by the bed, hugging each other as they chatted. I've received a letter from the palace. The far-sighted king has entered the palace to visit the emperor, and he specifically requested to see me. As winter approached, the weather grew colder and colder. Fortunately, the two of them had high cultivations and their embrace was quite warm. Li Mo hugged Yun Ruoyan even tighter. When Yun Ruoyan heard Li Mo mention the far-sighted king, she sat up in his embrace. The far-sighted king has come to the capital? Is it that Li Sheng? Yun Ruoyan turned to Li Mo. There's only one far-sighted king in the Li kingdom, and that's Li Sheng. You seem to know him. I don't know him, but I do know something important about him, Yun Ruoyan replied solemnly. Tell me about it. Yun Ruoyan began to tell Li Mo everything she knew about the far-sighted king's rebellion. Liemo was even more certain of his suspicions after hearing Yunruoyan's words. It looks like the far-sighted king has been putting on an act all this time. Even I was fooled by him, Liemo commented coolly. He's clearly here to lure you away so that Li Furong and the black-robed man can make a move while you're away. Yunruoyan leaned against Liemo's chest, her brows furrowed. Liemo, I still find it strange that no one would be able to steal the all-seeing mirror alive. Given the far-sighted king's abilities, there's no way he wouldn't know this, so why would he go through all this trouble? That's exactly what I'm curious about, Liemo replied. I haven't made a move on Li Furong and the black-robed man because I want to lure out the mastermind, and because I want to see what they're up to. In that case, how do you plan to deal with the far-sighted king? Liemo thought for a moment. Since they're trying to lure me away, they must be wary of my presence. As long as I remain on Kongming Peak, they won't dare to make a move. Tomorrow, I'll leave Kongming Academy as they wish. Early the next morning, Mutely drove the carriage filled with night incense as usual and waited outside the southern tower for the registered disciple in charge of cleaning inside the tower to deliver the night incense. 2 registered disciples walked out with a chamber pot in their hands. They placed the chamber pot next to the night-scented incense cart and began to chat. I'm so jealous that you're in charge of Master Mo's room. Master Mo doesn't stay in the tower for long, and he'll be leaving soon. You'll be able to relax again, one of the disciples commented. Is Master Mo leaving? This is the longest he's stayed in the tower in recent years, the disciple in charge of Li Mo's room replied. Why didn't I know that he was leaving? I overheard their conversation when I was cleaning the first elder's room. Master Mo said that he'd received a letter from the Emperor of the Li Kingdom, saying that the far-sighted king had come to the capital to meet him. Oh, is that so? In that case I'll have some time to slack off. After pouring out the night incense, Liemo returned the chamber pot to its original spot and handed it to the 2 disciples for cleaning. Then he slowly drove the carriage away. As he turned around, Liemo's face suddenly revealed a sinister smile. I finally made it. Chapter 235. On the second floor of the southern tower, Liemo was standing in front of the railing when Liemo turned to look at him. As if sensing Liemo's gaze swept past the Mutely before he summoned a streak of green sword chi and stepped onto it. Liemo inwardly heaved a sigh of relief, a smile on his lips. I've finally gotten rid of this demon of pestilence. The black-robed man's understanding of Liemo came from the far-sighted king's warnings. As Liemo's younger brother in name, the far-sighted king understood him very well, and the more he understood him, the more he feared him. Liemo had only been 6 or 7 when he entered the palace, but he was already different from the average child. Liemo was too intelligent and his cultivation progressed too quickly. This surprised Li Sheng and he wanted to get closer to him. But no matter how much he tried, the little boy remained cold, as if he could tell that there was more to Li Sheng than meets the eye. Liemo's abilities as an adult shocked Li Sheng even more. At 16 he was able to command an army and quell the Beastkin rebellion, and he had a lofty status in Kongming Academy. Unfortunately, he couldn't make use of such a talented person, which left Li Sheng regretful and vexed every night. Liemo alone was equivalent to an entire army, but if he were to make an enemy out of Liemo, it would be as much of a hindrance as an army. Li Sheng had been lying low for so many years, partly because he wanted to be fully prepared, and partly because he was wary of Liemo. The biggest reason he had stolen the manual was to use it against Liemo. Li Sheng believed that if he were to meet Liemo on the battlefield one day, he would be able to put up a fight with him with the manual. As a result, the black-robed man's operation had come to fruition. Because he had already made preparations for the operation, the black-robed man moved quickly. After a brief discussion with Zhang Song and Li Furong, he came up with a plan. The operation would begin after midnight, when everyone was at their most tired. Zhang Song wouldn't participate in the operation, and instead returned to his own courtyard to await further news. Li Furong would be the main operator, while the black-robed man would provide support. Poor Li Furong still didn't know how dangerous the all-seeing mirror was, and that she was destined to be the sacrificial lamb. At this moment, she was waiting excitedly for the arrival of the midnight hour. When it was almost midnight, the black-robed man gave the order to begin the operation. Both of them were dressed in nocturnal clothes. Under the cover of the night, they moved quickly toward the southern tower. About 100 meters away from the 2 of them, there were 2 other figures hidden behind the black-robed man and Li Furong. They were moving at the same speed as the 2 in front of them. These 2 were none other than Shui Yun and Yunruoyan. Yunruoyan was in charge of following Li Furong. As she looked at Li Furong's back from afar, she couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Li Furong's cultivation wasn't very high, and even Lin Qingxue wasn't a match for her. She appeared to be an early-stage 5th-rank blade master, but her speed was so fast that even a peak 7th-rank blade master like Lin Qingxue had to use all her strength to keep up. Sure enough, even a seemingly useless vase might have something special about her. When the black-robed man and Li Furong arrived at the southern tower, they hid behind a patch of vegetation. Song Song had already drawn a map of the southern tower for them to see, so the two of them had a rough idea of what lay within. "You can move out now. I'll wait for you here," the black-robed man whispered to Li Furong. "All right." Li Furong crouched and took 2 steps towards the southern tower. Suddenly, she turned around and looked at the black-robed man with a burning gaze. "Master, don't forget what you said before." "Don't worry, when have I ever lied to you?" The black-robed man replied sincerely. "I'll definitely recommend you to the far-sighted king. Once he ascends to the throne, you'll be second only to the far-sighted king." Hearing this, Li Furong's eyes lit up even more. The black-robed man watched as Li Furong crawled all the way to a corner of the southern tower. He was a little reluctant to part with her. After all, he had spent so many years raising her. At the same time, however, he couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Once a person harbored such thoughts, they were bound to die, and Li Furong was no exception. When Li Furong reached the corner of the tower, she didn't open the door to the tower like Xuanhuan had expected. Her whole body was like a gecko climbing up the wall at an extremely fast speed. Xuanhuan had seen Li Mo use this technique before. That night, when they were scouting the Yuelu villa, Li Mo had used this technique behind Xuanhuan's back to avoid alerting the enemy. Xuanhuan naturally knew that this technique required a large amount of spiritual energy, which had to be converted into a suction force in order to scale the wall like a gecko. Li Furong clearly didn't have that much spiritual energy, but the fact that she was able to pull off such a suction force was truly puzzling to Xuanhuan. "There's a hidden door behind the southern tower. Miss Yun, you keep an eye on Li Furong and I'll stay here and keep an eye on the black-robed man," Shui Yun whispered to Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan nodded, then quietly circled to the back of the southern tower. Xuanhuan had already been informed of the location of the hidden door, so she was able to find it easily. After entering the southern tower, Xuanhuan walked all the way to the top floor. At the same time, Li Furong leaped over the railing and into the tower. Xuanhuan retracted her aura and hid behind the door as she watched Li Furong approach the all-seeing mirror. The all-seeing mirror sat quietly on a stone pedestal in the center of the room. Xuanhuan had only seen it once during the day. At that time she saw a white mist floating above the mirror of the divine eye of heaven. When the great elder chanted the incantation to open the mirror of the divine eye of heaven, the white mist dissipated and an eye appeared. After the eye slowly opened, one could see what one wanted to see in that pair of eyes. However, it was nighttime and this was the first time Xuanhuan had seen the all-seeing mirror at night. The surface of the mirror was pitch black, as if it were a bottomless pool, mysterious and cold. At the same time, one would feel a sense of reverence for it and not dare to approach it. Li Furong, however, didn't seem to feel this way. Her eyes glowed as she walked toward the all-seeing mirror. As she walked, she murmured, "So this is the all-seeing mirror? It's pitch black and there's nothing special about it." But as soon as Li Furong picked up the all-seeing mirror, a strange phenomenon occurred. A blood-red eye suddenly appeared on the surface of the mirror. The blood-red eye stared straight at Li Furong, causing her to retreat in fear. As she retreated, a beam of red light shot out from the eye and struck Li Furong's body. "It's a demonic eye, a demonic eye." Qiuqiu's voice suddenly rang out in Xuanhuan's mind. Qiuqiu had been cultivating diligently, and this was the first time in nearly 10 days that it had spoken of its own accord, and its voice was filled with fear. Even Xuanhuan, who had always been calm and collected, couldn't help but feel nervous. She didn't have the time to talk to Qiuqiu, and instead stared unblinkingly at Li Furong. Because something was happening to Li Furong's body as well. The red light seemed to be extremely harmful to Li Furong. Her face contorted in pain and her mouth was wide open but no sound came out. Perhaps there was a sound but it was muffled by the red light. Within the red light, it was as if a strange and tragic pantomime was taking place. Black scales began to burrow out of Li Furong's exposed skin. Li Furong's snow-white skin was slowly being covered by black scales, and the contrast between the black and white scales caused Xuanhuan's back to turn numb. "Mistress, so this noisy Li Furong is actually a black-scaled gecko that's turned into a demon." Xuanhuan stared in shock. Li Furong was still transforming. Her hands and feet slowly turned into sharp claws, and her face began to take on the appearance of a gecko. Finally, she landed on all fours within the red light, revealing her true appearance. She was a gigantic black-scaled gecko. The blood-red eye continued to emit a red light that seemed to have a corrosive effect. The gecko's hard scales began to melt, and white smoke began to rise from the gecko's body. The gecko struggled in pain, but the red light from the demonic eye seemed to imprison it. Not only did it stop its voice, but it also froze all of its movements. By the time the gecko had completely melted, a pitch-black beast core was left within the red light. That's the gecko's core. It's extremely poisonous and can be used to refine poison, Xianxia reminded. Xuanhuan nodded and walked toward the red light. Just as she was thinking about how to extract the gecko's core from the light, her gaze landed on the all-seeing mirror's demonic eye. In an instant, Xuanhuan felt as if she'd been electrocuted. A white light flashed in her mind, and the figure of a black dragon slowly flew up into the sky. The white light dissipated. "Mistress, hurry up and extract the core. The elders are coming." Xianxia quickly called out to Xuanhuan when she saw that she was suddenly stunned. The white light in her mind disappeared, and Xuanhuan regained her clarity of mind. When she heard Xianxia's call, she looked at the all-seeing mirror once more, only to find that the pair of demonic eyes had disappeared, and the surface of the mirror had returned to its original pitch-black state. The black-scaled gecko's core fell to the ground. Xuanhuan picked it up and stored it in her bracelet before quickly descending the tower. The black-robed man was hiding behind the vegetation. Seeing that there was no movement from the top of the tower, his heart was filled with anxiety. Suddenly, 5 streaks of sword light appeared from different directions. The black-robed man knew that he had succeeded, and he carefully retracted his aura. The 5 streaks of sword light were none other than the first elder and the other elders. The 5 elders had sensed the all-seeing mirror's movements, and they had hurried over. When the black-robed man saw the 5 streaks of sword light land on the top of the tower, he crouched down and approached the southern tower. He fished out a key from his robes and easily opened the southern tower's doors. Chapter 236. Xuanhuan watched as the black-robed man entered the pagoda, then followed suit. The black-robed man entered the tower. Following the map that Xianxia had given him, he easily found the secret chamber at the bottom floor. According to Xianxia, the great elder would cultivate in the secret chamber every night. The door to the secret chamber was ajar. The black-robed man seemed to have seen the first elder leave in a hurry after sensing the mirror, not even bothering to close the door. The black-robed man entered the secret chamber. Xuanhuan, who was following behind, said, "Just as Prince expected, it's a diversion, there's another plan." Xuanhuan did not follow the black-robed man into the secret chamber. Instead, she turned and walked up the stairs to the top of the tower. The 5 elders reached the top floor of the southern tower. The mirror was still on the stone platform, but the air was thick with demonic aura. "Looks like a demon broke in," the second elder said, scanning the surroundings. But the monster's level was too low. It wasn't strong enough to activate the heaven and earth formation, so it was killed by the all-seeing mirror. Sixth elder squinted, as if he had not woken up from his meditation. "Why don't I see the first elder?" "He should have sensed something when the all-seeing mirror appeared," the third elder said curiously. "He lives in the southern tower, so he must have arrived earlier than us. He probably went back after seeing that nothing happened." The sixth elder yawned and waved his hand. "With the mirror, we don't have to worry about any demons or ghosts. Let's all go back. I'm so sleepy in the middle of the night." "No, there's something fishy going on," the second elder said. The second elder asserted. As he spoke, he actually approached the God's Eye mirror, as if he wanted to open it to see what was going on. "Second elder, are you crazy?" The fifth elder stopped him. "The mirror cannot be opened at night, or it will be punished by the heavens. You're in charge of the Hall of Penitence, so you should know this better than any of us." When the second elder heard this, he stopped what he was doing. "Why don't we go find the first elder and ask him what's going on?" the third elder suggested. The elders all agreed with the third elder and headed down the tower. Just as they reached the stairs, they saw Xuanhuan walking up. "Elders, please wait," Xuanhuan said as he blocked their path. "Xuanhuan, what are you doing here?" asked the second elder with a frown. "I've been ordered by the great elder to wait for you," Xuanhuan said, pulling out an identity medallion that glowed with purple light. The elders recognized the identity medallions in Xuanhuan's hands. Not only did they recognize that each of them had one, but they also recognized the medallions. That had been many years ago when they had first entered Kongming Academy. At their level, the identity tag was no longer important, so they usually wouldn't wear it on their bodies. Instead, they would keep it. So when they saw the Great Elder's identity card, they couldn't help but be a little surprised. On the orders of the Great Elder, please remain at the top of the tower for the time being, Xuanhuan said. What do you mean? Third Elder asked curiously, did something happen? Elders, please wait a moment. Once this is over, the Grand Elder will give everyone a reasonable explanation. Xuanhuan didn't say anything else, nor did he answer any questions. Although the elders were puzzled, they still had to obey the Great Elder's orders, so they waited patiently. After passing through the door of the secret chamber, there was a corridor with 2 rows of stone doors on either side. Behind these doors were all the treasures of Kongming Academy. According to the intelligence they had received, the manual was stored in the 3rd stone chamber on the left. The black-robed man took out the key he had used to open the tower and opened the door. In the opposite chamber, Xuanhuan and Liemo were observing the black-robed man's movements through a hole in the stone door. The thousand-faced key, Liemo murmured. What is it? Xuanhuan asked. That black-robed man is holding the thousand-faced key, which is made from the core of a thousand-faced beast, and can unlock all locks in the world, Liemo replied. Such a good thing is mine. Xuanhuan smiled. Can we leave now? Liemo nodded, and the 2 of them walked out of the chamber. In the opposite stone room, the black-robed man was rummaging through rows of wooden shelves, looking for the divine dragon art of war. On the wooden shelves, there were all sorts of books and some unknown treasures. Finally, the black-robed man found a black box in an inconspicuous corner. The box was only the size of a palm, and there was a lifelike carving of a black dragon engraved on it. This is it. It's exactly as described in the intelligence reports, the black-robed man thought as he reached for the box. So that's what you wanted. Suddenly, a low voice came from behind the black-robed man. Startled, the black-robed man turned around to see Liemo and Xuanhuan standing side by side in front of the stone door. Didn't you leave? The black-robed man looked at Liemo in shock. I did leave, Liemo replied slowly. But I came back. You're trying to trick me. The black-robed man held the black box in his hand and lowered his body into a defensive stance. You think you've hidden yourself well, but you've already been exposed. We didn't do anything to you because we wanted to see what you were up to. Hand over the box and we might spare your life. Humph, I'm afraid you don't have the ability to catch me. The black-robed man tossed an object onto the ground. As the item shattered on the ground, a dazzling white light shone on the black-robed man. The black-robed man then disappeared without a trace. Where did he go? Xuanhuan was shocked to see the black-robed man disappear so suddenly. It's a teleportation scroll. Liemo was also a little surprised. Teleportation scrolls could allow a person to teleport, but activating them consumed a great deal of spiritual energy. Typically, it required 2 or 3 people to activate them simultaneously. In order to reach the trial, at least 4 strong cultivators were needed. However, there were a few teleportation scrolls left behind in ancient times that had the same function as teleportation scrolls. However, these scrolls were exceptionally rare, and Liemo had only seen one in his entire life. He hadn't expected the far-sighted king to have gone to such great lengths to obtain that small box. That teleportation scroll wasn't of a high rank, so he couldn't have gotten far. Hurry up and chase after him. Liemo didn't rush to answer Xuanhuan's doubts. He turned around and rushed off, with Xuanhuan following closely behind. A white light flashed by the edge of a cliff, and the black-robed man landed on the ground. Damn it, I've been discovered. The black-robed man was frustrated. Luckily, I've got the item. Brother Blackrobe, did you succeed? Just as the black-robed man was about to fly off on his sword, Xianxia suddenly appeared behind him. Yes, I did. The black-robed man's voice was relaxed. I've finally completed my mission, and I can finally leave this damned place. Congratulations, Brother Black-robed. Xianxia also walked up to the black-robed man, his face full of joy. You've contributed quite a bit this time as well. When we get back, I'll definitely put in a few good words for you in front of the far-sighted king. Before the black-robed man could finish his sentence, he felt a sharp pain in his abdomen. He stared at Xianxia in disbelief. Why? The black-robed man grabbed Xianxia's blood-stained hand. Xianxia was holding a dagger in his hand, and the blade of the dagger had completely sunk into the black-robed man's abdomen. Brother Black-robed, you've been exposed, Xianxia whispered. Xianxia lowered his voice and said, You can't escape. Only by killing you and confusing the crowd can I deliver the divine dragon art of war to the prince. Rest in peace. By the time Yunruoyan and Liemo had arrived, they saw Tsang stab the black-robed man's chest, then kick him off the cliff. Senior Tsang, stop. Yunruoyan shouted at Tsang, but it was clearly too late. The black-robed man had already been kicked off the cliff. Tsang sheathed his sword and looked at Liemo and Yunruoyan calmly. Liemo and Yunruoyan quickly walked to the edge of the cliff. Yunruoyan looked down and saw that the bottom was shrouded in mist. If he fell from here, he wouldn't even have a corpse left. Yunruoyan turned back to Liemo's senior Tsang, why are you here? Liemo frowned at Tsang. Tsang's expression remained calm. I happened to wake up at night when I saw a scarlet sword flash past my window. I didn't recognize it, so I chased it here. The black-robed man on the sword tried to escape, so I knocked him off the cliff. The black-robed man fought back fiercely and I accidentally killed him. Liemo wanted to ask more, but Yunruoyan interrupted him. Senior Tsang, did you see the black box in the black-robed man's hand? Black box. Tsang pretended to be confused. Did you chase the black-robed man here because he took the box? Senior Tsang, did you see it? Liemo didn't answer Tsang's question. Tsang thought for a moment. When I knocked the black-robed man off the cliff, he seemed to have dropped something, but I couldn't see what it was exactly. Where? Yunruoyan asked hurriedly. Tsang pointed to the bushes and trees behind him and said, it fell over there. Senior Tsang, the black-robed man stole that item from the southern tower. It's very important. From the southern tower? Tsang looked surprised. Then it must be something very important. Hurry up and look for it. After saying that, Tsang walked into the flowers and trees and pretended to search carefully. Found it. A moment later, Yunruoyan found a black box hidden among the bushes. Yunruoyan held the box in her hand. Her fingers brushed past the carving of a black dragon on the lid, and she felt a cold sensation seep into her skin. Chapter 237. Yunruoyan felt a strange coolness from the black box in her hand. She couldn't help but take a closer look at the black box in her hand. It was a box made of an unknown material. It was entirely black, and the engraving of a black dragon on it was exceptionally exquisite. At a closer look, it looked as though it were a living creature. Yunruoyan also felt a sense of familiarity with the dragon. Yunruoyan had seen the illusion of a black dragon a few times at the bottom of the lake in the Imperial territory, as well as in her dreams more than once. Subconsciously, she was very familiar with their appearance. As a result, she felt a strange sense of familiarity with the engraving. Yen. Liemo called out when he saw that Yunruoyan was in a daze. Yunruoyan looked at Liemo and opened her mouth, but she didn't say anything. This feeling was so strange that she couldn't explain it in words. Here, is this the one? Yunruoyan handed the black box to Liemo. Liemo took the box and confirmed that it was indeed the one that had been taken away by the black-robed man. He glanced at Tsang coolly before opening the box. A green jade tablet was placed inside. The jade tablet emitted a faint green light, indicating that it was not an ordinary item. However, neither Liemo nor Yunruoyan had ever seen it before, so they couldn't tell what was so special about it. Liemo closed the box again. Senior Tsang, a thief has snuck into the academy. Tomorrow I'll have to trouble you and the stewards from the other colleges to conduct a thorough investigation, just in case the thief has any accomplices. Of course, Tsang replied. Tsang's expression darkened as he watched Liemo and Yunruoyan leave. His dissatisfaction with Liemo rose once more. Relying on your status as the first elder's head disciple, you arrogant brat. Sooner or later I'll show you what it means to respect your elders. Tsang snorted and turned to leave. Liemo stopped after 2 steps and turned back to Yunruoyan. The 5 elders are still waiting in the southern tower. I'll have to return to the palace and get my master back to deal with them. Liemo's departure was true, and he had indeed gone to the palace to meet the far-sighted king. However, he had found an opportunity to have the first elder take his place. The first elder knew how to disguise himself, so he had disguised himself as Liemo to confuse the crowd. I'll go too. Yunruoyan exclaimed. I don't have much to do here anyway. Liemo summoned a green sword aura, wrapped one hand around Yunruoyan's waist, and stepped on the sword aura as they flew toward the capital. It'll take a few hours for us to make a round trip. Senior Shui Yun won't be able to deal with those 5 elders by herself, will she? Yun Ruoyan poked her head out of Li Mo's loose robes. Shui Yun is only following orders. They won't make things difficult for her. As Li Mo spoke, he rested one hand on his sword and the other on Yun Ruoyan's head, pushing her back into his warm robes. Less than 4 hours later, Li Mo arrived at the Slaughtering King's manor. It was already late at night, and the first elder, disguised as Li Mo, had already returned to the manor after the banquet. The two of them landed in Li Mo's Green Lotus courtyard. As soon as they reached his bedroom, the door swung open. Yun Ruoyan stared in shock at the person who had opened the door. That person had a face identical to Li Mo's. Before Yun Ruoyan could react, Li Mo had dragged her into the room. "Master," Li Mo called out to the person who looked exactly like him. "He's the first elder?" Yun Ruoyan asked in surprise. No one answered Yun Ruoyan's question, because the first elder had answered Yun Ruoyan's doubts with his actions. He stretched out his right hand, which glowed with a faint white spiritual energy. Then the first elder brushed his right palm, which glowed with spiritual energy across his face. Li Mo's face disappeared, replaced by the first elder's original appearance. What kind of technique is this? It's so powerful that it can change a person's appearance. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. It's a spirit transformation technique, and only those who are at the peak of their cultivation can learn it, Li Mo explained. "How did it go? Are you done?" the first elder asked. Li Mo recounted the events of the night in detail to the first elder, and Yun Ruoyan supplemented. "I didn't expect that Li Furong to be a black-scaled lizard. However, its cultivation was too low, and it was melted by the all-seeing mirror's red light. All that's left is this." Yun Ruoyan took out the black beast core with a flip of her hand. Logically speaking, Li Furong's cultivation shouldn't be low if she's able to take human form and refine such a large beast core. Yun Ruoyan raised a question. But from the way she was killed as well as her usual behavior, it's clear that her cultivation isn't all that high. Why is that? Li Mo didn't know much about Li Furong, so he couldn't answer Yun Ruoyan's question. The great elder said, "There's only one possibility for such a situation. She's a mutant that has just gained a human form not too long ago. Moreover, she didn't obtain her human form through cultivation. Instead, she consumed some kind of spiritual medicine that can help her quickly gain a human form. This is a kind of excessive enthusiasm. Even if you obtain a human form, your cultivation will never be able to increase." So that's how it was. Yun Ruoyan finally understood. Li Furong had clearly been used by the black-robed man as a pawn to ensure her death. "Master, this is what the black-robed man stole from the southern tower." Li Mo handed the black box to the first elder. The great elder took the small box and examined it carefully. Then he opened the small box and took out the piece of jade inside to examine it carefully. This was likely the first time the first elder had seen such an object. "First elder, you don't look like you've seen this box before," Yun Ruoyan asked. The first elder nodded. There were 10 stone chambers in total, and each chamber contained at least 1,000 items, ranging from artifacts and weapons to all sorts of tomes and rare antiques. I've studied less than 100th of them, and this is the first time I've seen this box and this piece of jade. Although this green jade is valuable, it doesn't seem to have anything special about it. It shouldn't be worth so much effort." The first elder narrowed his eyes and looked at the box. Compared to the green jade, this box is even more unique. The first elder suddenly thought of something else. How did the black-robed man get into the secret chamber? It would have been better if the first elder hadn't mentioned it, but Yun Ruoyan immediately remembered. She couldn't help but feel a little heartache as she said, "The black-robed man used the 10,000 transformations key. I wanted to get my hands on it, but the black-robed man was knocked off the cliff by Martial Granduncle, and the 10,000 transformations key followed him down the cliff." "Which Martial Granduncle?" Great Elder asked. "Song Song." Li Mo crossed his arms. "I felt that something was off about him. I could have caught the black-robed man, but he threw me off the cliff. Also, the item in this box is far from what I expected. Could it have been swapped?" "You suspect Song Song?" The first elder frowned, a little surprised. Song Song was the caretaker of the Southern College as well as his trusted junior brother. Only a suspicion but no concrete evidence. Li Mo nodded. After the black-robed man stole the box, only Song Song had any contact with him. If there really is something wrong with the item in the box, then it's highly likely that Song Song was the culprit. The first elder's expression turned serious. According to Li Mo, the far-sighted king was planning a rebellion, and the item stolen by the black-robed man had to have something to do with it. The secret chamber had always been Kongming Academy's top secret, and only the first elder had the authority to open it. If even he wasn't familiar with it, how could someone like the far-sighted king know about it? Moreover, Song Song was a high-ranking member of Kongming Academy. If Li Mo's guess was right, how could he have had anything to do with the far-sighted king? If that was the case, then Kongming Academy couldn't keep him around. Li Mo, I've always supported you in everything you do, but Kongming Academy has never participated in the struggles of the secular world. Our goal is to constantly improve our cultivation and venture into the universe, the first elder began. Most people in the world are short-sighted, but you should know that cultivation is the only way. Yes, master. Li Mo nodded. The first elder was both a master and a senior to Li Mo, and more often than not, he played the role of a friend. As a result, Li Mo respected and trusted the first elder. Sometimes, Li Mo would choose to ignore Empress Shuetong's words, but he would often listen to the first elder's advice. At this moment, Xuanhuan wasn't listening to their conversation. She couldn't help but recall the demonic eye she had seen in the all-seeing mirror. The crimson light emitted by the demonic eye could melt Li Furong's black-armored lizard in an instant. It was extremely terrifying and bizarre. Xuanhuan couldn't help but think of the demonic eye she had seen in the serpent ring. Although that demonic eye was much smaller and less powerful than the one she had seen in the all-seeing mirror, the aura it exuded was extremely similar. Mistress, before you figure out what's going on with the demonic dragons, it's best not to tell anyone else. Not even Li Mo or the first elder. As if sensing Xuanhuan's confusion, Qiuqiu reminded her once more. You'll have to investigate on your own. Just a moment ago, Xuanhuan had indeed considered asking the first elder and Li Mo about the matter, but Qiuqiu's reminder had dispelled that notion. After explaining the situation to the first elder left. He also brought the black box back with him for safekeeping. Li Mo still had to enter the palace after daybreak, as the far-sighted king would be staying in the capital for a few days. The next day, after having breakfast with Xuanhuan, Li Mo entered the palace. Xuanhuan didn't follow him. Instead, she went to the Lin Manor to look for Lin Zainan. Xuanhuan hadn't forgotten the black dragon's words in the demonic dragon tomb. Investigate carefully, and you'll surely find some clues that will reveal your identity. If she wanted to uncover her true parentage, she would have to start with those closest to her. Xuanhuan first chose Lin Zainan, who truly loved her. Lin Zainan was pleasantly surprised to see Xuanhuan. The last time Xuanhuan had been infected by demonic energy, Li Mo had hurriedly taken her away from the Lin Manor. Although Li Mo had reported that she was safe, Lin Zainan couldn't help but worry. As soon as he saw her, he looked her up and down, asking if she was feeling well and if she still felt unwell. Only when he received a positive answer did he relax. Why had she suddenly returned? Chapter 238. Xuanhuan brushed off Lin Zainan, saying that she'd come with Li Mo to take care of some business, and that she'd dropped by to see him. Lin Zainan asked about Xuanhuan's cultivation, as well as how the Lin sisters were doing. Then Xuanhuan used a fireball technique on Lin Zainan, who was delighted and gratified. When grandfather was young, he was so obsessed with pill making that he neglected his cultivation as a blade master. In the end, he wasn't able to become a true blade master, and his mastery of spiritual energy was even more shallow. You're able to do both and achieve good results. You've already surpassed your grandfather at such a young age, so your future will be limitless. Seeing that Lin Zainan was so excited that his face was red, Xuanhuan poured him a cup of tea. Lin Zainan took the cup and sipped it slowly, calming his excitement. If your mother were still alive, she'd be delighted to see you so successful. Since Lin Zainan had brought up her mother, Xuanhuan asked, Did mother come back often when she was pregnant with me? Yes, she came back often even when your grandmother was still alive. I was often away from home, but I heard from your grandmother that your mother loved to go to the peach orchard to look at the peach blossoms. At the mention of the peach orchard, Xuanhuan recalled that strange dream in which Lin Yueme had asked her to call a stranger, Daddy. Xuanhuan couldn't help but ask, Grandfather, did my mother have any male friends other than my father before she gave birth to me? Lin Zainan didn't expect Xuanhuan to suddenly ask this question. I just thought that someone as beautiful as mother must have had a lot of suitors before marrying my father, Xuanhuan added, realizing that her question had come too suddenly. That's right. Lin Zainan sighed. After your mother reached marriageable age, there were so many matchmakers at home. Because she was of marriageable age, We arranged for her to meet some of the scions of the larger families, but none of them caught her eye. Lin Zainan paused as if immersed in a memory. He gently placed the teacup in his hand on the wooden table. What I didn't expect was that she'd fall for your father. Lin Zainan sighed again, his expression full of regret. If I'd known that day, I wouldn't have held that peach blossom party. Yun Ruoyan's eyes lit up. This was the first time she'd heard of such a thing from Lin Zainan. From Lin Zainan's tone, it seemed likely that Lin Yueme had met Yun Lan at the peach blossom party, and had fallen in love with him as a result. Grandfather, what's the peach blossom party? Yun Ruoyan hurriedly asked. Thus, Lin Zainan slowly recounted the past. About 18 years ago, Lin Yueme had just reached marriageable age. Once a woman reached marriageable age, they would immediately arrange a marriage. Back then the Lin family was still quite powerful, and Lin Yueme was famed for her beauty. As a result, the number of people who wanted to marry her was overwhelming. One day Lin Zainan was returning home. Lin Zainan clearly remembered that it had been late autumn, and the flowers outside had withered. The Lin family's peach blossom garden, nourished by spiritual energy, was as lush as spring. Lin Foran discussed with him and decided to hold a peach blossom banquet. They invited all the disciples of the big clans who usually visited the banquet to pick a son-in-law. And on the day of the banquet, Yun Lan appeared. Grandfather, as far as I know, the Lins and the Yuns have been at odds for a long time. Why did you invite my father to the banquet? Yun Ruoyan asked. As far as Yun Ruoyan knew, her grandfather hadn't approved of the relationship between her parents at first, and it was only after her mother, Lin Yueme, had tried her best to convince Lin Zainan to allow it. Even so, Lin Zainan had never been fond of Yun Lan. Of course I didn't invite him, but I couldn't stop him from coming with someone else, Lin Zainan replied. At first, I didn't see your mother like him very much. Instead, she seemed to like that young Master Long. Lin Zainan face-bombed. That young Master Long? Is he from the capital? Young Master Long. Yun Ruoyan's heart skipped a beat. Which young Master Long? Is he from the capital? As Yun Ruoyan asked, she tried to recall the names of the Long families in the capital, but Lin Zainan replied, No, he's just here to join in on the fun, and your father is here to join in on the fun. Lin Zainan said that he'd noticed that young Master Long was a handsome man with an extraordinary manner of speech, a perfect match for Lin Yueme. He'd even sent someone to investigate him, only to discover that he was living in the Yun household, his origins unknown, and his whereabouts a mystery. Lin Yueme was the only daughter of the Yun family, and Lin Zainan naturally wouldn't betroth her to someone of unknown origins. Lin Zainan forbade Lin Yueme from getting close to young Master Long, but Lin Yueme said that she only admired young Master Long's talent and experience, and that the two of them were just ordinary friends. That young Master Long really is quite a character. Your two uncles are on good terms with him, and the three of them often travel together. I can't keep your mother here alone, Lin Zainan replied. Lin Zainan replied, I just didn't expect your father to be with them every day, and I didn't expect you made a fall for your father in the end. From Lin Zainan's tone, Yun Ruoyan could tell that her father couldn't even compare to young Master Long. Whether it was in terms of talent or cultivation, Yun Lan was considered a prominent figure in the Li Kingdom. If even he couldn't compare, then young Master Long had to be extraordinary. Hearing Lin Zainan's words, Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but think of a possibility. If what the demonic dragon had said was true, and Yun Ruoyan really did have the blood of a demonic dragon flowing through her veins, then she wouldn't be the sole wife-born daughter of the Yun family, and Yun Lan wouldn't be her father. Could this young Master Long also have the blood of a demonic dragon? Was he the man whom Lin Yueme had asked Yun Ruoyan to call her daddy? Ruoyan, what's the matter? Lin Zainan interrupted Yun Ruoyan's train of thought. She raised her head to look at him, her eyes blank. Ruoyan, what's the matter? Have you run into a problem that you can't solve? No. Yun Ruoyan shook her head and smiled. I'm just curious about this young Master Long. Come to think of it, this young Master Long is really strange, Lin Zainan continued. Yun Ruoyan craned her neck, afraid to miss a single word. After your father and mother got married, he suddenly disappeared. Someone like him shouldn't be a nameless nobody, but I've never heard of him throughout my travels. It's as if he's vanished from the face of the earth, Lin Zainan murmured curiously. Yun Ruoyan left the Lins and returned to the Slaughtering King's manor, where she was surprised to see her brother, Yun Maxiao. When Yun Ruoyan saw her brother, Li Luo was standing by his side. Thank you, Sister Li Luo. I was just about to ask you to help me inform my brother. Yun Ruoyan smiled. His Highness has ordered me to invite young Master Yun, Li Luo replied with a smile. His Highness treats Miss Yun well. Yun Ma Xiao pretended to be angry. Ruoyan, you're back but you didn't come home? That's too much. You're not even married yet. Brother, we haven't seen each other in a long time. Can we talk about something else? Yun Ruoyan half coquettishly changed the topic, then dragged her brother to the Qinghe manor. I'll go prepare some tea. Li Luo turned and left. When Yun Ruoyan saw her brother's gaze following Li Luo's back, she couldn't help but tease him. Brother, how's it going with your sister-in-law? Yun Ma Xiao's face reddened. What sister-in-law? We're not even married yet, and if she hears you calling me that, she'll probably ignore me. What do you mean we're not married yet? Brother, you're a little inefficient, you. Yun Ruoyan giggled as her brother covered her mouth. Not long after, the two of them arrived at the Qinghe manor, which was separated by a pond and a wooden house. The lotus flowers in the pond had all withered, but the school of goldback carps in the crystal-clear water was quite beautiful. This must be the slaughtering king's manor, right? Yun Ma Xiao looked at Yun Ruoyan. You're staying here too? Yes. Yun Ruoyan also looked at her brother. His brows were furrowed more and more tightly, and a strange look appeared in his eyes. What are you thinking about? There are plenty of rooms here. I'll take this one and he'll take that one. Yun Ruoyan gestured with her hands. There's quite a few rooms in between. Only then did Yun Ma Xiao soften his tone. You'll only be 14 after this year, and you'll only be of marriageable age next year. Don't let anyone take advantage of you. And someone so powerful that even he couldn't do anything about it? I know. Yun Ruoyan nodded obediently. Although Yun Ma Xiao was a little sentimental, he truly cared about her, unlike his brother who couldn't wait to give her to Li Mo. The two of them chatted as they entered a side hall. Just then Li Luo returned with tea. Sister Li Luo, my brother's staying for lunch today. Sorry to trouble you, Yun Ruoyan said. Li Luo glanced at Yun Ma Xiao and smiled. It's no trouble at all. She then left to prepare lunch. I see that Sister Li Luo is much closer to you now, so you'd better be more proactive. Yun Ruoyan looked at her brother. Yun Ma Xiao didn't look at Yun Ruoyan. Instead, he lowered his head and stared at the tea in his cup. She's more grateful to me than anything else. Her senior brother is currently serving under my master in the northern barracks, and I was the one who recommended him. Yun Ruoyan thought of the beastkin man who had lost an arm. Yun Ma Xiao took a sip of tea, then raised his head and smiled brightly. But I have plenty of patience. Brother, I'd like you to investigate someone for me, Yun Ruoyan suddenly said. Who? Yun Ma Xiao asked. A young master surnamed Long. He appeared in the capital 18 years ago, and he was on good terms with our parents. Then for no apparent reason he disappeared. Help me find out who else he's been in contact with other than our parents. Yun Ruoyan saw the confusion on Yun Ma Xiao's face. Don't ask me why and don't tell anyone else about this. I'll tell you when the time comes. Yun Ma Xiao nodded, suppressing his doubts and asking no further questions. Having one's own secrets was a sign that one had grown up. Yun Ma Xiao felt that Yun Ruoyan had already grown up, but he didn't know that Yun Ruoyan had far too many secrets that he didn't know and couldn't let him know. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.